Chapter 836. Ma Duobao didn't take it to heart at all, and said, "Come together. You don't have to say that, we have the same intention." Zhuo Qifeng, Wu Gaoyuan, and the other Divine Realm's 5 geniuses, plus the 2 18-eyed corpse kings. This lineup was truly terrifying. 20 stars of shattering void tier battle prowess. Extremely rare even in the Divine Realm. I'd really like to see it. Unfortunately, so what if it's 20 stars of battle prowess? The gap between the immortal level is too large, and the difference between 10 stars of shattering void tier and 20 stars of shattering void tier isn't very large, so there's absolutely no need to attack this limit. After today there will be no Purple Moon Kingdom. Zhuo Qifeng and the others all sneered. Their words also filled with disdain. Ling Han, however, shook his head. It was precisely because the gap between each tier of the immortal level was too large that every tier below had to be cultivated to perfection. Otherwise, what right did those so-called 1-star geniuses and 2-star geniuses have to be stronger than others? Zhuo Qifeng and the others said so only because they had no way of reaching the height of 20 stars. In other immortal realm, any random person from the 5 sects would be able to sweep through the entire vast lands if they were not suppressed by the power of the realm. But the 5 sects might not be some top-notch force in the immortal realm, so the younger generation that they nurtured might not necessarily be able to cultivate to perfection in every cultivation level. However, to be able to reach 18 stars in the Shattering Void tier was already extremely extraordinary. At least, the vast lands only produced 2 freaks, Ma Duobao and Helian Tianyun, who knew how many millennia ago. Ma Duobao casually raised his hand and attacked the 7 great elites. Hey! The 5 great geniuses all attacked in unison. Wu Gaoyuan even brandished the mountain and river axe, and as the axe's surface swept past, even space itself was torn apart. The 2 18-eyed corpse kings were unafraid of Ma Duobao's strength, and directly faced him head-on. Pong pong, the 2 great corpse kings were immediately sent flying back, but with their clash the power of Ma Duobao's attack was greatly reduced, and Zhuo Qifeng and the others could easily receive it. This also showed Ma Duobao's strength. It was just a casual attack, and it actually required 7 great elites of 18 stars of Shattering Void tier to work together to be able to match it. Bam bam bam. They were soon engaged in a brawl. Both sides definitely had their ultimate moves that they hadn't used yet. They fought from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain, and then to the sky. Stars fell one after another, and it was as if the world was going to end. Fortunately, the stars in the sky were formed from the power of the world and could be constantly replenished. Otherwise, with the way the experts were fighting, no matter how many stars there were, they wouldn't be able to withstand such a torment. Hehe, have you guys washed your necks clean? Heavenly Astral King sneered. Although they, the 8 kings, couldn't be considered elites of the 2nd tier, with 18 stars of Shattering Void tier battle prowess appearing, 15 stars of battle prowess was still the 3rd tier. Although there were only 8 of them, they had enough confidence to defeat the hundreds of Shattering Void tier elites of the 5 sections. Shameless boasting. The white-haired old-timers began to ignite their chi and blood. Rumble. Terrifying power erupted from their bodies, instantly pushing their battle prowess to 14 stars. The 5 sects truly had deep foundations. Generally speaking, as long as they advanced into the Shattering Void tier, the elites of the 5 sects would choose to seal themselves, and wait until the end of the reckoning and enter into the immortal level before continuing to cultivate. This way they would achieve twice the result with half the effort. However, there were also a few who chose not to seal themselves and continued to cultivate, leaving themselves only a few dozen years before using the time source fluid. They were known as Protector Guardians. If they encountered a major event that threatened the survival of the 5 sects, although it was unlikely to happen, they would unseal themselves and come out to eliminate the danger. However, because their lifespan was already at its end, they had to ignite their chi and blood in every battle. This was actually using their lifespan as the price, further shortening their already short lifespan. Even if they entered the immortal realm in the future, they might not have enough time to advance into the immortal level. This required considerable awareness and courage, so the Protector Guardians were also the most respected. Even Zhuo Qifeng and the other geniuses of the immortal realm were polite and respectful. There were a total of 5 such Protector Guardians. 4 of them had 14 stars of Shattering Void tier battle prowess, and the last reached 15 stars of Shattering Void tier. With the addition of these 5 people, The strength of the 5 sects naturally soared. Kill. Although the Lunar King was a woman, her temper was the most irritable, and she was the first to charge out. Lunar 8 style. The moment she came out, she used her ultimate move. Her 2 white hands turned into giant palms that covered the sky and earth, slapping downwards with pung pung pung. The other 7 kings obviously wouldn't sit still, and charged out one after another. Ling Han, on the other hand, became unaffected. He stroked his chin and muttered to himself, "Do I still need to attack?" The Revere Life Sword no longer shone. Just now it was actually Ma Duobao controlling it from afar, and now Ma Duobao himself had to fight a strong enemy, so he obviously didn't have the spare time to control the Revere Life Sword. Although Ling Han's defense was the best, perhaps unrivaled, in front of a Shattering Void tier elite, his lethality was completely insignificant. Whether he attacked or not didn't seem to change anything. "Ling Han, I'll be your opponent." Su Xiaoran ran out holding the absolute saber. Ling Han waved his hands and said, "I can't be bothered to fight with you, you're too weak now." Su Xiaoran trembled in anger. He was still a well-known figure among the whole world's younger generation, and even in the immortal realm those who comprehended Saber Heart could still be called geniuses, just not that rare anymore. "You're looking down on me too much. What if you add me? And me? Me?" Dong Ling the Small Sword Emperor, and the Son of Lightning all took a step forward, their gazes cold. Ling Han shook the Revere Life Sword, and said, "All right, I'll send you guys to hell, and let you guys atone for the innocent bloodshed by your ancestors. You're all just ants. Isn't it only right to make some contributions to our immortal realm?" The Son of Lightning said with a hideous grin. He had already unleashed the imitation mountain river axe, and a sliver of realm power condensed within it. Its might was similarly not to be underestimated. Ling Han's expression became stern, and he raised the sword horizontally, pointed it at the Son of Lightning, and said, "Just because of these words you deserve to die. Then you'll have to be able to kill me first." The Son of Lightning laughed loudly, and brandished the mountain river axe in an attack. This treasured tool had already awakened, and was exuding a terrifying might. Unfortunately, the Revere Life Sword had no reaction at all. Could it be that the battle with extreme resplendence just now had consumed too much energy? This wasn't impossible. The mountain river axe could be said to be this realm's strongest spirit tool, and added with Wu Gaoyuan's strength, how terrifying would it be? Yet it was blocked by the Revere Life Sword. Although it was controlled by Ma Duobao, it must have been greatly exhausted, so it was normal that it couldn't unleash its might now. Ha 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 ha. When Su Xiaoran arrived, he couldn't help but laugh loudly. If this sword of yours couldn't awaken, how could it possibly be their match? He too awakened the absolute saber, and slashed at Ling Han. Once these 2 spirit tools awakened, they would have the battle prowess of the Shattering Void tier, and would at least be at the standard of 10 stars, which was even stronger than the Ice Dragon Ground Blast formation. This far surpassed Ling Han's own battle prowess. Chapter 837. Ling Han used the Thunderclap 9th Heaven, and added with the Demon Fairy Step. His figure was extremely agile. Zhu Xian Rabbit and Gold-Seeking Rat were all drawn into the Black Tower by him to avoid being accidentally injured in the chaotic battle. He didn't have to worry about the 1,000 old soldiers. They moved in a formation, their battle prowess extremely terrifying, and charged into the battle of the 8 kings, fighting alongside their boss. Though the absolute saber and the mountain and river axe were powerful, they were only spirit tools after all and didn't have a tool spirit. This meant that they could only deliver terrifying attacks, but wouldn't automatically lock onto a target, needing to be controlled by someone. No matter how freakishly talented Su Xiaoran and the Son of Lightning were, their tier was still a shortcoming. First, they had to capture Ling Han's tracks before they could attack. As long as they could do this with the speed of the attacks from the 2 spirit tools, Ling Han couldn't dodge. But they had to capture Ling Han first. The speed of Ling Han's current speed was so fast that they were dazzled. Out of the 10 attacks that he had delivered, at least 9 of them had missed. If it were another person, it wouldn't matter. With the terror of these 2 spirit tools, they would be heavily injured even if they didn't die from one hit. But now it was Ling Han. His physique was on the level of 10th tier rare metal, so how could one hit be insignificant? Over 100 hits might only add a shallow wound. It couldn't be helped. A strong physique was just that capricious. Niu will help you. Niu also charged out. Her physique couldn't compare to Ling Han's, but her speed was faster. She darted up and down, her small fists and claws filled with destructive power, giving Su Xiaoran and the others an extremely strong threat. All three sides were in a chaotic battle. No matter which battle group, they were all Shattering Void tier elites, so even Heaven tier elites weren't qualified to join in such battles, and could only watch from afar, unless they could also get into a formation. But the battle between Ma Duobao and Wu Gaoyuan was the decisive one. Whoever won would be slaughtered without any suspense. Thus, though the other two battle groups were fighting fiercely, they all put a portion of their attention on the fierce battle at the very top. Would Ma Duobao suppress the heroes, or would he be devoured by a pack of wolves? In the second battle group, the Beast Snake King shouted, "Azura Demon Emperor, show yourself." Azura Demon Emperor Ling Han's heart trembled. This was battle prowess of 15 stars of Shattering Void tier, and it was very possible that it could change the balance of victory in the second battle. What a dog's nose. I've already hidden so far away, yet you can still smell me. The Azura Demon Emperor appeared. He was still in the body of a large man, and there was black demonic chi swirling around his whole body. He was very different from a normal person at first glance. There's still one more. How long are you going to keep up the act? Asked the Sword King. He sent a ray of sword chi into the distance. A cloaked person flew out from the other side. Third killing formation. A person was born with a formation, and the moment he was born, he would be the strongest existence in the world, capable of slaughtering Shattering Void tier cultivators. Ling Han's gaze swept over, and he couldn't help but be startled. He had seen this person once before, but at that time this person gave him a feeling of weakness. Although it was powerful, its body was extremely fragile. But now that feeling was gone. Previously, he had acted on behalf of the Thousand Corpse sect, and the reward he had received was probably related to this, making up for one of his weaknesses. How strong was this kind of third killing formation? The 9 great killing formations could all slaughter Shattering Void tier cultivators. To be specific, Ling Han had only seen the 4th killing formation, and it wasn't formed naturally, but an incomplete formation set up by the Thousand Corpse sect, which was easily broken by Feng Peyun. But how strong was the 3rd killing formation that made up for its weakness? It could slaughter Shattering Void tier cultivators with 10 stars of battle prowess, and 15 stars at that. This old man was entrusted by someone to make a move once, and leave after killing one person, the 3rd killing formation said, his gaze fixed on the 8 kings. Only killing one person, and the one he was going to kill was the 8 kings. With the addition of the Azura Demon Emperor, the 8 kings actually didn't have the upper hand on the battlefield, and the 3rd killing formation really could kill one of them. Then once this gap opened, the remaining 7 kings would definitely retreat in defeat, either fleeing or dying in battle here. Shattering Void tier cultivators were hard to kill, but that didn't mean they couldn't be killed. Ling Han wanted to block the 3rd killing formation. Although his battle prowess wasn't strong, his defense was too terrifying, and it couldn't be better to use him to disrupt the situation. You'd better stay here obediently. Su Xiaoran smirked coldly, and joined forces with the Son of Lightning to stop Ling Han from being this shit-stirrer. The Absolute Saber and the Mountain and River Axe moved together, and it would be strange if they still couldn't keep Ling Han here. Hung! Ma Duobao's cold humph came from the skies. For the sake of, I'll spare your life, get lost. The 3rd killing formation couldn't help but smirk coldly. Such arrogance, actually daring to tell him to get lost. He raised his head and was indifferent at first, but his expression immediately changed drastically. Although everyone couldn't see his expression, they could clearly see that his body was trembling. Who you are? He cried out in shock as if he was frightened, and there was indescribable terror in his tone. Still not getting lost? Ma Duobao reprimanded. Yes. The 3rd killing formation didn't even dare to say a word, and actually really turned and left, instantly disappearing without a trace. The 3rd killing formation could kill Shattering Void tier cultivators, and was formed by heaven and earth, so how could he be scared away by a single word? Could it be that Ma Duobao had another identity? The 3rd killing formation recognized him, and then was scared away. Hung, when fighting against us, you still dare to be distracted. Wu Gaoyuan and the others sneered and attacked together. Hong! Ma Duobao was instantly submerged by the endless brilliance. In such a high-intensity confrontation, how could he be distracted? Wu Gaoyuan and the others all revealed smiles. Although the third killing formation was scared away, if they could slaughter Ma Duobao, or at least cause him serious injuries, then it would be completely worth it. The brilliance dispersed, and Ma Duobao stood proudly, completely unharmed. If one had to insist, then the dragon robe on his body was torn in a few places, indicating that he had indeed received an attack just now, but his flesh wasn't injured. What? Wu Gaoyuan and the others all cried out in shock. What was this situation? They had 18 stars of Shattering Void Tier battle prowess, and being hit by them, so what if he had 20 stars of Shattering Void Tier? He would still be heavily injured or even killed. Your physique? Zhuo Qifeng reacted. Has reached the level of 10th tier rare metal. Pooh. Everyone spluttered. Previously, Ling Han's terrifying physique already left a psychological shadow in people's hearts, and Ling Han only had a freakish physique. His battle prowess was completely negligible. But now Ma Duobao's battle prowess was the best in the first place, and added with this kind of defense, how could they still fight? Wu Gaoyuan and the others all swallowed with difficulty, feeling for the first time that they had completely lost control of the battle situation. This Ma Duobao was completely the alternative dragon from back then, with invincible battle prowess and impenetrable defense. So what if a god descended? Fortunately, Shattering Void Tier cultivators had a limited lifespan, and time was the greatest weapon. I can't kill you, but I can at least trap you in this prison of heaven and earth until you die, right? Ma Duobao revealed a faint smile, and said, without this bit of strength, how can you talk about splitting open the skies? Shua, the aura on his body blazed wildly, and killing intent circulated. Even Wu Gaoyuan and the others felt their scalps go numb, and goosebumps rose all over their bodies. They only felt that Ma Duobao only had to raise his hand to kill them. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 838. How could a human be so strong? 18 stars of Shattering Void Tier was practically the ultimate battle prowess of this cultivation level. Moreover, there were still 7 of them, and if they joined forces they would definitely be able to match 20 stars of Shattering Void Tier. But why did they still feel a sense of fear? Could it be that Ma Duobao's battle prowess has even surpassed 20 stars? Impossible! Wu Gaoyuan and the others all shook their heads. They definitely did not believe that anyone could surpass the limit of battle prowess of 20 stars. Even the descendants of divine beasts and saints would rarely reach battle prowess of 20 stars of Shattering Void Tier. What more surpassing it? We have to kill him today. Otherwise, with the support of the power of the nation, he'll become even stronger, said Zhuo Qifeng. Kill! Xiao Miaoyan shouted sternly, brandishing a blood-red longsword. Then, with a slash of her fingers, her forehead split open, and a drop of vermilion blood gushed out. It was incomparably viscous, as if it had condensed into a crystal. The moment this drop of blood appeared, even heaven and earth were moved. Black clouds churned, and blazing white lightning could be faintly seen. This drop of blood was too powerful, so powerful that it almost exceeded the limits of this world. It drew the reaction of heaven and earth. God's blood. Ma Duobao finally revealed a cautious expression. Sure enough, the God realm hadn't simply sent 5 people down. They'd even smuggled their own goods. Although a single drop of God blood couldn't represent a god, in this world, the might of God blood was unimaginable. Xiao Miaoyan murmured softly. It was unknown what she was saying, but this drop of divine blood suddenly turned into rain, and sprinkled onto her long sword. Instantly, this sword emitted an endless brilliance, and even had the driving force to suppress the mountain and river axe. It was only a drop of divine blood, but under the enhancement it was at least on par with the real mountain and river axe. This was too terrifying. It was the same for Zhuo Qifeng and the others. They each took out a drop of God's blood and added it to their spirit weapons. Instantly, their auras became several times more terrifying. It was as if all of them had the bodies of gods. Now, the battle prowess of these 5 people had probably reached 20 stars of Shattering Void Tier, and none of them was inferior to Ma Duobao. Die! The 5 of them worked together and unleashed their ultimate moves. The 5 spirit tools gave off great might and rushed into the sky, causing large amounts of stars to fall. How do I block that? That was 5 people with battle prowess of 20 stars of shattering void tier. Even if he had a physique of level 10 rare metal, so what? He would still be cut in half. Could it be that Ma Duo Bao also had the terrifying recovery ability of Ling Han? Everything will be over. Ma Duo Bao also revealed a solemn expression. No matter how strong he was, he would not dare to look down on battle prowess of 20 stars of shattering void tier. What more when there were as many as 5 of them? He extended a finger, tapped lightly on his chest and said, "Open." Immediately, endless killing intent circulated as his entire body emitted white light. One could clearly see glowing runes appearing on his exposed skin. They were ancient, vigorous and grand. What was even more shocking was the murderous aura. These patterns were enough to make one's skin crawl. Those with lower cultivation levels would be blinded by a single glance. Will of martial art? No, it's an array pattern. Ling Han had seen Yin Hong imprinting formation patterns on her own body, and it was very practical. With her body as a formation, she could activate the power of the formation at any time, combining both offense and defense. But Ma Duo Bao's runes were completely natural. Ling Han even suspected that someone could reproduce these formation patterns, because he felt extremely uncomfortable just by using his eyes, and this was under the situation where he activated the Eye of Truth and channeled Sword Heart. Would a normal shattering void tier cultivator dare to stare? But if they didn't even dare, how could they reproduce such complicated formation patterns? Without decades or even centuries of study, how could they grasp them? Born with formation patterns hissed, then wouldn't he be the same as the third killing formation? No wonder he showed mercy to the third killing formation earlier, and his tone was strange. No wonder the third killing formation was so agitated, because they were of the same kind, revealing each other's details. But the third killing formation was actually scared off by a single sentence from Ma Duo Bao. What did this mean? World's first killing formation, Zhuo Qifeng and the others stopped their attacks at the same time, their faces revealing shock. Ma Duo Bao was also a natural formation user, and the first killing formation. According to the legends, the first killing formation could slaughter gods, so how could Zhuo Qifeng and the others not be afraid? They hadn't even become gods yet. Ling Han came to a sudden realization. No wonder Ma Duo Bao on the martial art rock would leave behind the name first. This was not only his pride, but also because this was indeed his real name. World's first killing formation. Ma Duo Bao attacked. Hong, endless killing intent circulated, enveloping the heaven and earth. Wherever the white light swept past, the space was also forcibly torn apart, and there was endless energy turbulence attacking, extremely terrifying. This was his true strength. The world's first killing formation could slaughter gods. Zhuo Qifeng and the others were forced to stand together and fight together. So what if 5 of the world's strongest spirit tools worked together? They were still suppressed, barely able to protect themselves. Poo pew pew. Blood splattered everywhere on their bodies, and they were instantly riddled with wounds. This made the people of the 5 sects and the 1,000 corpse sect despair. The world's first killing formation could kill gods and Buddhas, and was absolutely invincible in this small world. Otherwise, would it still be worthy of the title of first? Hong! Just at this moment, a strange thing happened. A ship's bow actually appeared from the spatial fissure torn open by Ma Duo Bao. Because the spatial fissure wasn't very large, only a tiny bit of the ship's bow appeared. But it was this tiny bit that made everyone's legs weaken, and they all fell down from the sky. No one was an exception. Zhuo Qifeng and the others were like this, the 18-eyed corpse king was like this, and so was Ma Duo Bao. Pong pong pong. Over 100 shattering void tier elites fell down from the sky like dumplings, each and every one of them tumbling down, looking extremely pathetic. This scene was a bit funny. Shattering void tier elites would actually be like this, but now no one could laugh and instead revealed an expression of extreme fear. Everyone knew that the void was the most dangerous place in the world. Being in it, even 10th tier rare metals would be quickly torn into pieces. However, it was too difficult to open the void, and only shattering void tier elites could do it, using it to open up a passage and enter the divine realm. However, shattering the void was definitely an extremely dangerous thing and one could easily die. Even without the great formation laid down by the 5 sects, only half of the shattering void tier elites could successfully shatter the void. However, a ship sailed over from the void. This was practically like a myth. What material could resist the destructive power of the void? All of a sudden, everyone lost the will to fight, leaving only shock and confusion. What did this ship represent? Hong hong hong, the ship's bow lightly struck the spatial fissure. It obviously didn't seem heavy, but after every strike the heavens and earth shook, and even shattering void-tier elites couldn't help but spit out blood. It was as if it struck their hearts. The black tower trembled lightly inside their bodies. Ling Han was unaffected, and so was Hu Niu. The little girl was similarly very strange. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 839. Xiu, the sharp arrow shot out. This arrow was incredibly fast, turning into a streak of light that shot towards that strange demonic beast. Ling Han nodded internally. Though the power of this arrow couldn't compare to the annihilating Dragon Star arrow, the gap wasn't too big. However, if he used this bow to unleash the annihilating Dragon Star arrow, the power would definitely be stronger. If he used the ultimate arrow, then there was even less to say. Ding! The sharp arrow shot out, releasing a series of sparks and then bounced back. That demonic beast seemed to have been startled awake, and suddenly stood up. This was as if a carpet had been grabbed from the middle, and then lifted up, extremely strange. But in the process of lifting it up, the figure of this demonic beast was also changing, actually turning from a thin carpet into a fierce tiger. It was 30 meters long, 15 meters tall, and its whole body was crimson red. The fur on its neck seemed to be burning, and it was awe-inspiring. Everyone was shocked, not because of the appearance of the demonic beast, but because Xiao Cici's arrow actually didn't have the slightest effect. This was extremely shocking. The strength of the demonic beast is beyond our expectations. What do we do? Force our way in? Why don't we first lure this demonic beast away, then open the door, and then leave together? This idea isn't bad. There's obviously no point in wasting time here. Everyone nodded. After discussing for a while, they decided that Duan, Xian, and Su Jing would lure the demonic beast away, while the rest of them would be responsible for opening the door. They were all prodigies of the current generation, and since the plan had been formulated, then they would naturally carry it out to the letter without any hesitation. Ugly thing, come and chase us. The three of them started to provoke the demonic beast, but the demonic beast was lazy and couldn't be bothered with them. It was as if it had been shot by an arrow earlier but didn't chase after them. It was so lazy that one's hair stood on end. Duan and the other two quickly made their move, shooting out waves of essence force at the demonic beast. At first, the demonic beast couldn't be bothered with them, but after being hit so many times it finally couldn't take it anymore. With a roar, it charged at the three of them. This pounce was extremely fast. Duan and the other two scattered and fled, making use of the terrain here to play hide-and-seek with the demonic beast. Ling Han and the others also rushed out, and began to attack that door. Pung pung pung. Loud bangs rang out continuously, but what surprised them was that this door was unbreakable. Everyone unleashed their ultimate moves, but no matter how sharp their attacks were, which could even insta-kill an ordinary cultivator at the peak stage of the consummate level of the mountain river tier, they were completely useless against this door. I can't open it at all. They couldn't help but admit that in front of this door, their power was like a mayfly encountering a tree, completely unable to move. Xiao Cici was meticulous, and suddenly pointed at that demonic beast, and said, "On that tiger's neck?" Everyone looked over, and saw that there was actually a key tied around the demonic beast's neck. Come, we definitely have to defeat this ferocious tiger, and take the key to open the door. No shortcuts. Then let's call Brother Du and the others back, and fight with all our strength. Everyone was filled with heroic spirit. Previously, it was only because they didn't want to waste time that they decided to lure the tiger away from its den, but now that they could only fight, they were also unafraid. Shui Yanyu and the spear-wielding man retreated to one side. They couldn't possibly interfere in this kind of battle, or else they would only be courting death. That was because this demonic tiger was extremely powerful. Otherwise, Duan and the others wouldn't have needed to lure it away, and could have just directly trapped it in one side. Everyone sent out a signal for Duan and the others to return. Duan and the others circled back, and couldn't help but feel strange when they found that the door was still tightly locked. There's no need to ask. This door can't be opened at all, and we need to use the key hanging around that demonic beast's neck, Guanrong explained. Haha. Then let's battle it out. Duan and the others were not the slightest bit afraid. The 8 great prodigies stood side by side and welcomed the demonic tiger that had run back. This demonic tiger was a little unbelievably powerful, and there were as many as 80 divine patterns on its body. What kind of concept was this? It was equivalent to an 8-star genius, and furthermore it was at the peak stage of the consummate level of the mountain river tier in the first place, and added with the power of 8 stars, it was so powerful that it had no friends. No wonder it was a team of 10 people. Though Ling Han and the others were all prodigies among prodigies, they would still only be defeated if they encountered this demonic beast. Theoretically speaking, the number of 10 people could make up for the gap of 1 star of battle prowess. After all, these prodigies had yet to form their 5th mountain river, and there was practically no way they could deal with this demonic beast. Come! The 8 of them were all brimming with confidence. Aside from Ling Han, the other 6 had all reached the peak stage of the consummate level of the mountain river tier, and their power was as high as 6 stars. Added with the secret techniques that they had grasped, their battle prowess was at least 7 stars, and when they used their ultimate moves, their battle prowess would definitely be able to reach 8 stars. Thus, the possibility that they would be able to win was still relatively high. I'll focus on the front, Ling Han said. This received the complete approval of Xiao Sisi, Su Jing, and Duan. Though Xiao Wuk was very displeased, he did not object. They knew that the toughness of Ling Han's physique was far superior to theirs, and he was the best choice to take on the front. Meanwhile, Li Xian and the others had never seen Ling Han's defenses before, and were slightly surprised. A cultivator in the high extreme of the mountain river tier would take on the front. But even Xiao Wuk did not object, so they naturally could only believe him. Ling Han drew out the divine demon sword, and after it had recovered, he immediately charged at the demonic tiger. Pong, the demonic tiger waved its paw, and Ling Han was instantly sent flying. Its power was too strong, and had almost reached the true pinnacle of the mountain river tier. Ling Han was completely unqualified to stand against it. Wah! He spat out a mouthful of blood, and couldn't help but feel gloomy. Previously, he had just been sucked dry by Empress Luan Xing, and had only recovered a little with great difficulty, and now he had been beaten to the point of spitting blood again. There was a grudge between them, right? This strike dislocated a few of his bones, but Ling Han merely shook his origin power, and his bones naturally returned to their original positions. He shot off and charged back again. He used the fast technique, and his attacks were like a tidal wave. However, though Ling Han's physique was freakish, that demonic beast was not simple either. Under Ling Han's strike after strike, it was similarly unaffected, as if it was indestructible. This was really inconceivable. Previously, it had turned into a carpet that was soft to the extreme, but now it was as if it had been forged from high-grade godly metal, and was incredibly hard. How could these two completely different qualities possibly appear on the same body? The demonic beast pounced, its battle prowess powerful, and it had an air of supremacy. Ling Han held it back from the front, and the 7 of them attacked with all their might, but every attack was a waste of effort. The freakishness of this demonic tiger's defenses even surpassed Ling Han's. This is definitely not a demonic beast, but a puppet, Ling Han concluded. He had cultivated the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, and that was why he possessed such a physique. How could it be something that any random cat or dog could compare to? But if this demonic tiger was a puppet forged from godly metal, then it was easy to understand. As long as level 5 godly metal was extracted to forge it, then its defenses would naturally be something that no mountain river tier could handle. This could also explain why its power was so strong. Chapter 840. How dare you, daring to barge into our territory, retreat quickly, the 5 girls shouted at the same time. Instantly, a terrifying aura swept over. Zhu Xian Air and the rabbit trembled all over, and the gold-seeking rat directly flipped over, its 4 feet facing the sky, pretending to be dead. Hu Niu was immediately displeased and shouted, "Niu won't retreat, so what?" Courting death. A girl raised her spear and aimed it at Hu Niu. Instantly, endless killing intent circulated, and the air seemed to freeze. Ling Han was dumbstruck. This girl's aura was even stronger than Ma Duobao's. How was this possible? Ma Duobao was the world's #1 killing formation, capable of killing immortals. In theory, he was invincible in this realm, but this girl's aura was even above Ma Duobao's, so there was only one possibility. Immortals. But even if immortals descended, they would be suppressed by the realm's power, and couldn't explode with immortal-level power. Strange, too strange. Ling Han pulled Hunyou and said with a smile, "We'll retreat now." They slowly retreated, returning to the first cabin, and then retreated from the hole. Those who entered one step before them also retreated one after another, and even Zhuo Qifeng, Ma Duobao, and the others were no exception. In other words, even those with battle prowess of 20 stars of Shattering Void tier didn't dare to fight, which was enough to prove the strength of these female soldiers. More terrifyingly, these were only soldiers, and definitely not the ship's strongest battle prowess. "Brother Ma, even you can't beat them?" Ling Han asked Ma Duobao. Ma Duobao smiled bitterly, and said, "Come, I underestimated the world before, and just a few people made me feel insignificant. How is this possible? With battle prowess like his, he already stood at the peak of humanity, and it was already extremely difficult for an existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with him, let alone so many appearing all at once. These aren't real people, but only mental power that hasn't dissipated," Small Tower suddenly said. "What?" Ling Han was startled. The 5 women he encountered weren't real people. Could they be ghosts? According to your understanding, they can indeed be called ghosts. Small Tower sensed Ling Han's thoughts. After death, there's a strong obsession that doesn't dissipate, and added with their formidable strength when they were alive, they formed such a soul body. But it's almost no different from a real person. It seems to have its own consciousness. Ling Han said. Didn't the 5 women yell at them just now? Their reactions were no different from ordinary people. It's just my instinct when I was alive. Small Tower said calmly. If you don't believe me, you can ask for their names. Spiritual bodies will only leave behind lingering thoughts, but all other memories will disappear. Ling Han pursed his lips and said, Then will I be stabbed to death by their spears? They don't exist at all. They only deceived your eyes and even your divine sense. How could they possibly harm you? Small Tower said disdainfully, beginning to act proud again. Ling Han thought for a moment and said, Brother Ma, how about we try again? Oh, Tan brother, do you have a brilliant plan? Ma Duobao said. Ling Han laughed heartily and said, We'll know once we go in and take a look. All right. Ma Duobao agreed straightforwardly. It was still the same thing. He didn't believe in Ling Han's strength, but he believed in Ling Han as a person. The 8 kings looked at each other and followed behind Ma Duobao. Although the female soldiers they had encountered earlier had caused them to tremble, and they didn't even have the courage to fight. This wasn't because they were cowardly, but because they knew that the gap between the two sides was too great, and they would definitely die if they fought. They swore to die to accompany their lord. Seeing Ling Han and the others enter the large ship again, Wu Gaoyuan and the others also followed after each other. In any case, if they encountered danger, there would be people to fight in front of them, and if they encountered treasures, they could also make a move to snatch them. Not long after entering the ship, they very quickly encountered the group of 5 female soldiers patrolling in front of them. How dare you actually dare to barge into this place? Hurry up and get lost. One of the female soldiers berated, her reaction no different from before. But it was precisely because of this that Ling Han, Ma Duobao, and the others all felt that it was strange. If someone accidentally barged into your home, you might very politely ask the other party to leave the first time. But what if the other party quickly barged in again? Your reaction would definitely be completely different, right? But the 5 women's reactions were exactly the same as before. This was strange, very strange. Indeed, as Small Tower had said, these 5 women were only formed from the obsessions of their lives, so naturally they had no memories to speak of. They wouldn't remember that they had already entered once before. Furthermore, a large ship had crashed out of the void, yet they were still patrolling as if nothing had happened. This in itself was also not normal. It was just that everyone had been intimidated by the aura of these dead souls earlier, and their brains couldn't process it at all. Ling Han casually flicked his finger, and a streak of sword chi immediately swept towards one of the women. You're courting death. That woman pounced over and brandished her spear, piercing straight for the top of Ling Han's head. This might was too terrifying, and even Ma Duobao couldn't help but want to make a move. This was a martial artist's instinct. How could they just resign themselves to death? Even further behind, Wu Gaoyuan and the others revealed cold smiles. To actually provoke such an existence, that was really courting death. So what if he had a physique at the level of 10th tier rare metal? In front of such an existence, he would definitely not be able to withstand a single blow. Yet Ling Han stood upright and unafraid, and instead puffed out his chest. Hong, that woman pounced over, but directly passed through his body, frightening the 8 kings behind so much that all the hair on their bodies stood on end. Even further behind, Wu Gaoyuan and the others almost broke into a run. Could it be that this woman's brain had gone haywire, and she wanted to kill them? This is a phantom image, Ma Duobao immediately said. He saw with his own eyes that the woman passed through Ling Han's body, as if she didn't exist. Ghost. Ling Han spat out a word. Ma Duobao laughed loudly. He didn't believe in gods, and thought that the so-called gods were merely living beings with stronger power and longer lifespan. So he obviously wasn't afraid of ghosts and monsters. He stared at the remaining 4 female soldiers and said, "So this is a god? After death, the soul doesn't vanish, and merely this aura is enough to scare people to death." If Ling Han didn't give it a try, who would believe that these women were only spirits, and were completely harmless? Wu Gaoyuan and the others finally reacted, and couldn't help but blush slightly. They, the Shattering Void tier elites and even people of the Divine Realm, were actually inferior to a mere deity transformation tier elite in terms of knowledge. It was embarrassing to say it out loud. Get lost, the remaining 4 women shouted one after another, and attacked together, but their bodies were struck and they couldn't do anything. However, after a few times, Ling Han still felt a headache, and couldn't help but ask Small Tower. Since it's a dead soul and obsession, it will naturally have a certain influence on your divine sense. After charging for 8 to 10 years, you'll more or less die without a cause, Small Tower explained. Fortunately, exploring this large ship only took a short while, so there was naturally no fear of being haunted by ghosts and dying without a cause. Chapter 841. The attack of dead souls had a certain damaging effect on one's divine sense. After all, these female soldiers were incredibly powerful when they were alive, and were definitely far superior to Ling Han. Even after death, they could still leave behind a mark in this world because their obsession did not dissipate. This was really hard to imagine. One had to know that this ship crashed out from the void, and the void also had a strangling effect on the spirit, but they appeared intact. These people were definitely gods when they were alive. The impact that Ling Han received was quite great. In the traditional understanding of martial artists, immortals represented something like indestructible and immortal, existing for eternity. But now a divine ship was greatly damaged, and the gods on it were all killed. The so-called realm of immortals should only be the lower realm that had a higher level of martial arts. There were slightly more elites there, and they lived slightly longer. Their territory was slightly larger, and they also had slightly more resources. However, they were not gods in the true sense of the word, being omnipotent and immortal. The 5 female soldiers all screamed and attacked, not only at Ling Han but also others. Although they no longer had powerful strength, they still had a cutting effect on the spirit. Ling Han could hold on for 8 to 10 years, but it didn't mean that others could. Shattering Void tier elites were naturally fearless, especially those who cultivated the heart of martial art. Their spirit was strong, but under the Shattering Void tier, as long as they didn't cultivate the heart of martial art, they would all look pale and extremely uncomfortable. Their spirit was being torn by these dead souls, giving them a splitting headache. However, this ship might hide amazing treasures, and no one wanted to retreat at this time. Even if they couldn't get it, they had to take a look. This was an irresistible temptation for them. Besides, opportunities couldn't be obtained with strength, or else why would there be so many people searching for treasures in mystery realms? When someone was stronger than them, they couldn't retreat. Pa Deity Transformation Tier Warrior suddenly fell head first, never to get up again. Dead. The spirit was destroyed, and the body was naturally an empty shell that would slowly decay. This was obviously someone from the 5 sects, and was a veteran deity transformation tier warrior. He could be considered an expert outside, but now he died so silently. Someone even put his body into a spatial spirit tool, and didn't even bother to bury him. Clap, clap, clap. Under the onslaught of the dead souls of the female soldiers, there were still people who fell one after another. They were all in the deity transformation tier and the flower blossom tier. Martial artists with lower cultivation levels were not qualified to enter. All those who are below the heaven tier, get out, the Sword Emperor said in a stern voice. He had cultivated the sword heart, and his shout directly entered one's soul, instantly clearing the eyes of many people who had been blinded by greed. They woke up from their intense greed and hurriedly retreated. If he didn't even have the qualifications to establish a foothold here, how could he talk about fortuitous encounters? He would just be throwing his life away. Even so, the celestial tier elites were still a bit strained, feeling so uncomfortable that they wanted to vomit, but their spirits wouldn't be destroyed by the souls of the dead for a while, and it was enough to support them to search the whole ship. They searched through the cabins one by one. If a secret treasure appeared ahead, they had no right to compete with Ma Duobao and the other elites. This was the job of Zhuo Qifeng and the other elites. Ling Han and Ma Duobao walked side by side. There were 5 dead souls of the female soldiers patrolling the bottom level, but judging from the number of cabins, the number of soldiers should far exceed this number. Only 5 dead souls of the female soldiers came out because the 5 of them were stronger, or the dead souls of the others were somewhere else. With this question in mind, they arrived at the second to last level. This place was still separated by cabins, and judging from the size and layout, it was also used as a resting room, but like the lower level, there was only emptiness left here. As they walked, they encountered the dead souls of the 5-man team of female soldiers. This was also the existence that scared the others out of the ship, but this time no one was afraid and continued forward in the charge of the female soldiers. The ship was large, but how long would it take for everyone to walk one round? They entered the third to last level. This level was still a resting room, but it was obviously much more luxurious. Every room was larger than the ones below, and only those with higher status were qualified to stay here. If there were soldiers, then there would definitely be officials. There were more female soldiers patrolling here, at least 7 teams. Adding on the 2 teams from before, there were about 50 dead souls continuously charging. This was unbearable for heaven tier elites, and those who didn't cultivate martial art heart couldn't resist at all, holding their heads and screaming. Ling Han had already put Zhuxian Air, Rabbit, and Gold-Seeking Rat into the Black Tower. Hunyo was freakish, so she was naturally unafraid, and he himself cultivated sword heart, so he was also unafraid. The 5 sects, on the other hand, were in a miserable state. In just a short period of time they had suffered grievous casualties. Their sky human stage cultivator's soul was also destroyed, becoming a warm living corpse. Seeing that, the eyes of the 9 underworld king and the others turned fiery and they nearly drooled. This was the freshest material for refining corpses, and it was still hot. If they were refined into corpse soldiers on the spot, they would be able to unleash the maximum power. They even set their eyes on the shattering void tier elites, who could refine corpse kings. Even if they were now allies, the 5 sex people felt their blood run cold from their gazes, wishing they could kill these people first, and then consider the matter of treasure hunting. You don't mind this king taking these corpses, right? It's a waste to give them to you. The 9th underworld king finally couldn't help but say. Heaven tier corpses could be refined into 3rd tier gold armored corpses, second only to corpse kings. Also, what do you mean by wasting the dead's natural burial? Being humiliated by you guys refining them into corpse soldiers, that's madness. The 5 sects hurriedly took the corpses. Since they were dead, they could be put into spatial rings, and it wouldn't be troublesome to carry them around. They walked and came to the central area of this floor, and saw a woman appear in front of them, sitting upright, with a long table in front of her. She was similarly covered in battle armor, but completely different from the other female soldiers. Her battle armor was of a much higher grade, and there was even a cape on her back, exuding an awe-inspiring divine might. This was a female general. Step down, the female general said. Yes, the 9 teams of female soldiers answered respectfully, and stepped back one after another. So many years have passed. and it can be considered a kind of fate for all of you to be able to arrive before I perish." The female general looked at everyone and made a gesture of invitation. "This general will treat you all to tea." Everyone looked at each other. This deceased soul invited them to tea. Who would dare to drink? "No one is willing to drink tea with me," the female general said with a smile. Previously, the female soldiers were all stiff and only had the thought of guarding the ship. This was also the obsession that supported them, but this female general seemed to still have her own consciousness, which was too shocking. Ling Han thought for a moment and said, "If Senior doesn't mind that my cultivation is too weak, I am willing to drink tea with Senior and have a chat." Chapter 842. Drinking tea with a ghost. What kind of courage did that require? Moreover, did you know what you were drinking? You dared to drink what a ghost drank? Weren't you afraid of becoming a ghost? The others looked at each other, all thinking that since Ling Han wanted to be a sucker, then let him be. It was just the right situation. Previously, the number of dead souls of the female soldiers was enough to pose a threat to heaven-tier elites, so wouldn't this female general be even fiercer, able to injure even shattering void-tier elites? Thus, before understanding the situation, no one dared to barge in recklessly. After all, the origin of this divine ship might be shockingly great. Ha 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 ha, in this general's eyes, there's no difference between all of you, only a little bit stronger than ants, the female general said casually. Sit. Hearing her say so, Shuo Qifeng and the other divine realm's 5 great geniuses all looked annoyed. They also came from the divine realm. Was it really good for you to be so confident? Ling Han sat down with a smile on his face. He obviously did this because he was instigated by Small Tower, or else a ghost treating him to tea. Just thinking about it made one's scalp numb. Although the Tsundra Tower repeatedly said it wanted a change of master, that was only its stubborn mouth. Up until now, it had always been helping Ling Han, and it was believed that this time wouldn't be an exception. That female general poured tea for Ling Han, and a line of water slid out from the spout of the teapot, even steaming hot. After filling the teacup to half full, the female general put down the teapot. Everyone was in disbelief. Coming from the void, everyone was dead, but a cup of hot tea could still be poured out. This was too strange. Damn, what kind of tea was this? Everyone looked at the cup of tea in front of Ling Han, and suddenly all groaned. I've arrived at the flash of blades and shadow of swords, a scene of slaughter. I've arrived at a corner of the future. I've arrived at a sinister ghost realm. Everyone arrived at a different scene, but without exception, the scene that everyone arrived at was extremely shocking, making them break out in a cold sweat as if they were seriously ill. Not to mention normal shattering void tier elites, even Ma Duobao, Wu Gaoyuan, and the other strongest people of the present age couldn't help but tremble. The 2 18-eyed corpse kings were in an even more miserable state. 7 of their eyes exploded, and their auras instantly fell by a large amount. Obviously, their strength had fallen greatly. It was truly frightening. It was only a cup of tea and a glance, yet it actually produced such a shocking result. If he drank it, would he still be able to live? Woo! The 2 great corpse kings let out mournful cries, involuntarily retreating. Their entire bodies trembled, their skeletons swaying as if they were about to collapse. It's terrible. Everyone shook their heads. Even if a knife was held to their necks, they would not dare to drink this tea. If they drank it, they would definitely die. Ling Han, Ma Duobao said. He also did not want Ling Han to take the risk. The other party's future was limitless and bright. If he failed to split open the skies, then he could still rely on Ling Han, but it was absolutely impossible for the 8 kings. Ling Han was also hesitant in his heart. This cup of tea was too terrifying. It was practically frightening. That female general did not rush him, and only looked at Ling Han with a smile. Ling Han weighed the matter in his heart for a moment, and finally still extended his hand saying, "Senior, this cup of tea is a bit shocking, and actually makes this one a bit anxious. However, Senior has good intentions and this one has also agreed. Naturally, there is no reason for me to retreat halfway." He raised the cup of tea and took a small sip. It was extremely bitter. Ling Han's expression immediately became incomparably marvelous. This bitterness could practically kill. He resisted the urge to spit out the tea with great difficulty, but with two pa-pa sounds, his eyeballs actually fell out of their sockets. This was forcefully bitter. Everyone was greatly shocked. In terms of physique alone, only Ma Duobao could compare to Ling Han here, but even Ling Han was like this. It meant that if it was anyone else who drank this cup of tea, the result would be the same. Fortunately, they did not stick their necks out. Pa, both of Ling Han's ears also fell off, followed by his nose. Ta. All of his teeth had also fallen off, and his hair had also instantly fallen off, revealing a large bald head. This was not the end. His scalp split open, revealing golden bones, but on the bones that were comparable to 10th tier rare metal, spiderweb-like cracks appeared. Too terrifying, such strong bones, yet under the bitter taste they were about to crack. Pity. The 9th Underworld King could not help but feel very regretful. If such a strong physique was used to refine a corpse soldier, then it would definitely be a super corpse king. But now it collapsed on its own. That's fine, one less future disaster. Someone sneered. Ling Han's physique was too strong, and even a god that descended might not be able to kill him. If he died here now, it would be a wonderful thing. This tea was definitely the most poisonous thing since ancient times. Even a physique as strong as 10th tier rare metal was not qualified to be a match for it. Hunyo jumped up and down anxiously, but she surprisingly did not step forward, as if realizing something. Ma Duobao and the 8 kings instantly wanted to step forward, but that female general only glanced at them, and instantly, an extremely terrifying aura circulated. Pa Ma Duobao and the 8 kings instantly sat on the ground, unable to catch their breath, so how could they still stand up? Too shocking, this must be immortal level battle prowess, but why did it not draw the suppression of the Eye of Heavenly Tao? Perhaps it's just an aura, without any actual power circulating, an old antique guessed. But even if they knew that this was merely an aura, so what? Just like how a spiritual infant tier law decree could suppress a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator into kneeling, it was the same now. This female general was too strong, far surpassing ordinary elites. Could it be an elite of the heavenly body tier, or even the eternal river tier? Wu Gaoyuan and the other geniuses of the immortal realm guessed inwardly. The 5 sects had elites of the mountain river tier and the sun moon tier, but they definitely weren't this strong. Ling Han's bones finally all shattered, and his whole person turned into a pool of flesh and blood, looking incredibly terrifying. This was poison, melting a person with a single mouthful. Everyone was shocked, and secretly rejoiced that it wasn't them. Dead. Such a monstrous person had actually died just like that. It was too ordinary. Hunyo, on the other hand, calmed down. She stared at Ling Han's shattered bones, excitement flashing in her eyes. That female general was the same. Looking at where Ling Han sat, she nodded and said, as expected, "He has some luck, actually being able to enjoy the reincarnation tea." Her words had just fallen when Ling Han's shattered bones began to emit a golden light. Innumerable fragments were reassembling, and very soon, a human-shaped skeleton was formed. What, this brat didn't die? Reincarnation, life and death surpassing this world, the female general said calmly. Ling Han's reassembling speed continued to accelerate. The skeleton was already formed, flesh and blood grew, and was in the process of forming a true self. Reborn from death, he definitely has to be stronger than before. He can't be left alive, an old antique of the 5 sects said. He once again ignited his chi and blood, elevating his battle prowess, instantly reaching 14 stars of battle prowess. Then he struck out a palm strike at Ling Han's head. Now was the crucial moment of Ling Han's reassembling. His body was at its weakest and he could be killed with a single strike. Ma Duobao and the 8 kings were still in a paralyzed state, unable to rescue him at all. Chapter 843. Impossible. The invincible paragon saint shook his head, and said, 10 stars is an absolute threshold, and it's impossible to surpass it. If you already possess 10 stars of power, then consuming the purple pattern mountain river pill wouldn't have any effect at all. Oh, Ling Han nodded. He truly had no interest in this kind of alchemical pill. This was because he firmly believed that he would definitely be able to reach the true pinnacle of the mountain river tier. I can reach perfection on my own, So why would I need to rely on external help? It was best not to rely on external help if possible. In the end, cultivators were only powerful on their own. Ling Han chuckled and said, "Are you going to keep rewarding purple pattern mountain river pills? Can't you change things up a bit? Unless you can break through to the 9th level of the tower," the invincible Paragon Saint said. "What kind of reward will I give you?" Ling Han's eyes lit up. The invincible Paragon Saint immediately scoffed and said, "And you still say that you're not greedy? You've revealed your true colors, haven't you?" "Can't I do it because I'm curious?" Ling Han asked with a smile. "TSK, do you believe that yourself?" The invincible Paragon Saint said in disdain. Ling Han laughed loudly and said, "You're a senior, so is it really appropriate for you to mock a junior like me? It's everyone's responsibility to strike down shameless people," the invincible Paragon Saint said. Ling Han rolled his eyes in his mind. This invincible Paragon Saint should change his name to Invincible Despicable Saint. He's actually bickering with a junior like me? He asked, "Then what's the 4th stage?" It's the same from the 4th stage to the 9th stage. It's very simple. It's all about how powerful your attacks are and how sturdy your defenses are. As for the grand prize, that naturally has to be left for the end. So what if I tell you now? Will you be the lucky one in the end? The invincible Paragon Saint asked. Boring. Ling Han shook his head. He truly hoped that he would be able to decipher a few more sword strikes so that he could grasp more of the rhythm of the Great Tao. This would allow him to advance further on his path of cultivation. The invincible Paragon Saint humphed and said, "Why don't you challenge me after you pass the 9th stage?" The invincible Paragon Saint humphed and said, fuck off. Brat, do you have a halo of disgust around you? Why do I get angry just by looking at you?" Ling Han felt disdain in his heart. "It's you, senior, who's unreliable." He didn't waste any more words, and he walked up the stairs to the 4th level. This level was completely empty, and there were only 2 stone statues standing there. There was also an hourglass that had just begun to count the time. The words "hit me" were inscribed on the chest of one of the stone statues, while the words "I'll hit you" were inscribed on the chest of the other statue. Sure enough, this despicable saint is unreliable. Ling Han walked over to the "hit me" stone statue, and he immediately launched a punch at it. Pung! The stone statue was instantly sent flying. He was just about to unleash another punch to completely shatter this stone statue, yet he saw that the words inscribed on the stone statue had changed to pass. That's enough. Ling Han was astonished. Of course, he wasn't interested in being hit either. Thus, he casually walked out of the 4th level. "You came out so quickly?" There was a hint of anger in the invincible Paragon Saint's voice, and he said, Here. Take your things and fuck off." "Great, I've been disliked to this extent." Ling Han didn't linger, and he walked into the 5th level. There were still 2 stone statues here, one of which was "hit me," while the other was "I'll hit you." Ling Han still didn't want to be hit, so he naturally chose to hit the stone statues. He launched a punch and the stone statue collapsed. However, he discovered that this stone statue was clearly more powerful, as it hadn't been sent flying. Instead, it had merely collapsed. However, this still counted as a pass. It was clear that the higher the level, the more powerful the stone statues would be. Although he didn't challenge the "I'll hit you" stone statue, he was sure that the attack power of this stone statue would also increase. Sure enough, is he choosing a successor? Ling Han didn't mind obtaining the inheritance of a Genesis tier. This was the strongest power in the immortal realm, and even Venerable Trinity would go crazy if he came here. However, the invincible Paragon Saint didn't like him at this moment. Would he give him a beating after he emerged victorious? It was extremely possible that this shameless and despicable saint would do something like that. Forget it, I have to go out no matter what, so I might as well play along. After receiving his reward, Ling Han headed to the 6th level. Pung! It was still the "hit me" stone statue. However, Ling Han's punch didn't even move a single inch. Ling Han was astonished. His current power could surpass 6 stars, and this level was definitely based on cultivation level. It was impossible for a mountain river tier cultivator to attack a heavenly body tier stone statue. Nor would it allow a heavenly body tier cultivator to attack a mountain river tier cultivator. That would be completely meaningless. Even a power of 6 stars couldn't win. Ling Han channeled his secret technique, activating his divine patterns of flame and launching them at the hit-me stone statue. However, the divine flames only increased the destructive power of the stone statue, not the power of the strike. He wanted to consume a purple pattern mountain river pill, yet he discovered that his spatial spirit tool had been sealed. In order to prevent the invincible Paragon Saint from discovering the Black Tower, he had stored the purple pattern mountain river pills into an ordinary spatial spirit tool. In this level, he could only rely on his own power. Ling Han unleashed the fast technique. However, the might of the fast technique lay in its speed, so it couldn't unleash a power that surpassed the pinnacle. It was ineffective. Ling Han retreated a few more steps before unleashing the annihilating Dragon Star arrow. Xiao xiao xiao. He used his body as the bow, and his origin power as the arrows. He unleashed one arrow after another, yet it was still useless. The stone statue didn't collapse. This time he was truly slightly astonished. Even with 6-star strength and a secret technique, he still couldn't pass 1/3 of the hourglass had already passed. Once the hourglass's time was exhausted, it would mean that he had failed this level. Previously, there hadn't been anyone else at the end of the 5th level. This meant that if he failed here, he would be directly sent to the 1st level. Then I'll use the ultimate arrow. This arrow poured out all the power in his body in an instant. Not only was it extremely fast, but the power of the attack was also incomparably terrifying. If even this could not be of any help, then Ling Han could only go and take a beating. Ling Han took a deep breath and began to unleash the ultimate arrow. As he channeled the secret technique, his origin power rapidly condensed in a short period of time. His physical strength was superior in terms of explosive power, and he could unleash a full power attack at any moment. Xiao! The arrow of origin power transformed into a streak of light as it shot forth. The arrow struck its target, and the hit-me was instantly sent flying. Pass! A smile appeared on Ling Han's face. However, he slumped onto the ground completely out of strength. After a while, he finally recovered some of his strength. He stood up and walked out. The scenery around him swayed, and he saw the stone tablet again. Brat, you've surpassed my expectations. Who would have thought that you would be able to pass the 6th level when your power isn't even at 6 stars? The invincible Paragon Saint said. He didn't hide the astonishment and admiration in his voice. It's just so. Ling Han feigned humility, yet there was a look of pride on his face. He had done this on purpose. There was no need to be too respectful toward this kind of unreliable senior. Instead, this was more to the invincible Paragon Saint's liking. Although the invincible Paragon Saint kept yelling and rolling away, he would still take the initiative to speak to him. This was evident from this. I'll pay attention to you now. I don't believe that you'll be able to pass the 7th level, the despicable Paragon Saint said. Sure enough, he was starting to get angry with Ling Han. Chapter 844. Ling Han discovered that his spirit was now stable, and the attacks from the dead souls couldn't affect him anymore. In the past, it could still destroy his spirit in 8 or 10 years, but now he had nothing to fear even if it was 100 or 1,000 years. After experiencing a reincarnation, his spirit was even stronger than most shattering void tier elites. The space on this floor was unusually large. Other than the conference hall, everyone also arrived at some forts, densely covered in vein-like patterns. One look made one's scalp numb and a bone-chilling fear. Unfortunately, these forts were all destroyed. This must be godly metal. Everyone stared at the destroyed forts, which were made of metal. And to be used here, how shocking would the materials of these forts be? Everyone wanted to collect it, but couldn't get close at all. The vein-like patterns were too terrifying. A shattering void tier elite walked fast, but just as he approached, he was soundlessly shattered into pieces. That was the power of the vein-like patterns. Even if it hadn't been awakened, it was still a great killing weapon. Couldn't collect it. Everyone felt like they were going crazy. What kind of treasure was that? Godly metal, and they could only watch helplessly, making them want to vomit blood. Moreover, the lethality of the vein-like patterns was so shocking. If they could collect it, it itself would be a great killing weapon, and killing shattering void tier elites would be child's play. No matter how envious they were, they could only leave. One more floor and it was the deck. Although they leaped and flew outside, wanting to directly board the ship from the deck, not only did none of them manage to do so, they didn't even know what the situation on the deck was. No matter how high they flew, they couldn't see clearly. It was very strange. This time they finally boarded the deck from the inside and could see clearly. Huh! Once on the deck, everyone instantly exclaimed, "Was this an Azura battlefield?" There were corpses everywhere on the deck. Some were human and some were half human, half beast. They had wings, 2 horns, and were completely black. When there was no moon at night, they would even directly collide. Fresh blood covered the entire deck, and there were severed limbs and heads, emitting a terrifying baleful aura that solidified and steamed there. However, the most terrifying thing was the huge vat placed in the middle of the deck. It was filled with severed heads, all of which belonged to half-humans with 2 horns on their heads. Their eyes were still full of spirit, and they emitted a terrifying pressure. Everyone felt as if their bodies were going to explode the moment their eyes met. They hurriedly lowered their heads, not daring to look again. What kind of existences are these? It could be imagined that back then, when this big ship encountered a robbery, both sides should have died in battle, and the shockwaves of the great battle were too great, forcibly shattering the space and entering the void. It was only until Ma Duobao slashed open the space that this big ship finally reappeared. It was too terrifying. Most of the things on the ship had disappeared, which meant that the ship's defenses had lost their effectiveness. However, these skeletons were still there, and they even seemed to be newly dead. It was clear how powerful these creatures were. Even in death, the void could not destroy their skeletons. Ling Han gazed into the distance and saw a woman standing proudly at the bow of the ship. The cloak behind her fluttered to a length of 10 meters, revealing a set of golden battle armor underneath. It was very tight to her body and perfectly outlined her figure. It was just a back view, but it was enough to intoxicate people. Was this also a soul of the dead? Everyone walked carefully. The skeletons here were too powerful, and a single collision would probably kill them. How long could a deck of 900 meters be? They soon arrived at the bow of the ship and stood behind that woman. Hong, the cloak fluttered, and that woman turned around. In an instant the blue sky changed color, and it was as if the world was about to collapse. What kind of ultimate elite was this? Just turning around could bring about such a change. So beautiful. When that woman turned around, everyone revealed an intoxicated expression. This was a woman of unparalleled beauty, and also had an indescribably noble temperament. Zhu Xian'er and Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden were not inferior to her in terms of appearance, but if they stood beside her, they would be as dull as village girls. A fairy from the 9th heaven. For a moment there was only one thought in everyone's mind. No matter how old a man was, he would still fall in love with her. Even a woman whose heart was like dead water would have ripples in her heart. Men and women alike. However, Ling Han's limbs instantly became ice cold. This woman's appearance was exactly the same as the human-shaped spirit base in Hunyo's Dantian. A spirit base growing into a human form was an extremely strange thing, but now something even stranger happened. There was actually a real person. Hunyo said that she felt a sense of familiarity with this ship, as if she had been here before. And now there was a woman that looked exactly like the spirit base in her body. If it was said that she had no connection with this divine ship, then it would really be absurd. What's that? After a long while, someone finally pointed at an object floating in front of that woman, and exclaimed in surprise, "It looks like an egg." It's indeed an egg, and it seems to be covered in veins, but I can't feel anything. That's a divine egg. Would eating it immediately make one a great elite of the divine realm? More and more people paid attention to the object in front of the woman. Everyone knew that this woman was already dead, and now she was only a soul of the dead. No matter how beautiful she was, no matter how moving her temperament was, these people were all shattering void tier elites, and soon guarded their minds. Becoming stronger was their unchanging pursuit. Hunyo couldn't help but be dazed and said, "Someone's calling Nyo, so strange, Nyo can't control myself." She stepped forward and walked forward. "Hunyo." Ling Han reached out, wanting to grab Hunyo, but immediately felt a tightness in his chest, and his hand drooped down powerlessly. Hunyo walked step by step, arriving in front of that woman, and reached out to grab that egg. That was indeed an egg, no matter how much it resembled one. When her small hand touched it, that egg immediately emitted a dazzling light, and then with a shio it sank into Hunyo's chest, disappearing without a trace. "You've finally come," that woman said softly, her voice pleasant like the sounds of nature. "Who are you? Does Nyo know you?" Hunyo murmured. "I am your past life and you are my future life. From now on you are the complete you," that woman said, and her figure began to fade, about to disappear. Guarding this egg, was it her obsession? "Nyo belongs to Ling Han, not you." Hunyo immediately objected. Divine egg, divine egg." Everyone stared at Hunyo. This was definitely the most precious thing on the whole ship. Since the samsara tea was already so awesome, what kind of benefits would this divine egg bring? "Hand it over. Otherwise you will die." The people of the 1,000 Corpse sect and the 5 sects surrounded Hunyo, their killing intent soaring. The woman in front of him was about to dissipate, so there was no need to worry about her. She was just a little girl in the heaven tier, so how could she not be taken care of? "Do you really have to force me to go on a killing spree?" asked the woman who was about to dissipate. She stretched out a hand and slapped out. Pa 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 pa, the experts in front of her all exploded. Wu Gaoyuan brandished the mountain and river axe and charged at the very front. This time, he was also the first to bear the brunt of the attack, and was instantly blasted apart. His battle prowess of 18 stars of shattering void tier was completely insufficient in front of her. God level power. Zhuo Qifeng and the other prodigies from the God realm all stopped in their tracks, revealing expressions of extreme fear. Hong, the eye of heavenly Tao, suddenly appeared, blinking above the ship. Finally, this fellow was lured out. Chapter 845. In that instant, the aura that this woman exuded completely surpassed the shattering void tier, making the whole lower realm tremble. It even radiated out of this realm, spreading to even further regions. The eye of heavenly Tao appeared. It represented the will of this realm, and absolutely wouldn't allow any existence that would affect the balance of heaven and earth to appear. This woman was going to be banished. However, she was a dead soul in the first place, so banishing or not didn't make a difference. She was already about to dissipate. The eye of the heavenly Tao blinked, and a crack in the void immediately appeared beside the woman. It quickly spread out, wanting to devour her. As long as she was swept into the void, she would be completely banished out of the lower realm. As for where she would appear, that wasn't something the eye of heavenly Tao cared about. "If I want to leave, I'll naturally leave." The woman waved her hand, and the crack in the void that had just opened was immediately smoothed out, as if it had never appeared. Everyone was dumbfounded. The people of the 5 sects and the 1,000 Corpse sect were all clear that no matter how strong an immortal was, they couldn't rival the power of a realm. To enter this realm, they had to suppress their power, and once immortal level power burst forth, they would be banished and not allowed to enter this realm. This was an iron law, which was why the alternative dragon could rampage unhindered all those years ago, and even immortals couldn't deal with it in the lower realm. But now, the eye of heavenly Tao appeared to banish her, and she actually stayed. What kind of power was this? There's no justice in this world. There's no justice in this world. Everyone was trembling. This power was beyond their comprehension. Only Ling Han was mentally prepared, because Hunyo had previously chased away the eye of heavenly Tao, and she had an extremely close connection with this woman, so she would only be stronger. The eye of heavenly Tao represented the will of heaven and earth, and had no emotions. It stared at the woman and launched another attack, opening another crack in the void. Hung! The woman seemed to be angered and casually whipped. Path Eye of heavenly Tao was instantly repelled, and after Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth, he could clearly see that there was a wound on the Eye of heavenly Tao, and blood seeped out. Dark clouds rolled, and the heaven and earth mourned. The Eye of heavenly Tao was wounded, and it was the defeat of the whole lower realm. This. Being able to injure even the Eye of heavenly Tao, this was definitely invincible power, and could do as she pleased in the lower realm. Who else could stop her? It should be known that she was only a dead soul now, so how powerful had she been when she was alive? But if even such an existence had died in battle, then what kind of existence did she have to face? Ling Han's heart involuntarily trembled, feeling worried for Hunyeo. The woman said that she was Hunyeo's past life, and Hunyeo was her future life. In other words, if her great enemy did not die, then Hunyeo would have to face this kind of enemy. When immortals descended to the mortal realm, at least existences like the five sects and Yishuang would be suppressed by the power of the realm. However, this woman was able to damage the eye of heavenly Tao, and only in the state of a departed spirit, so she was naturally even more awesome when she was alive. Then one could deduce from this just how powerful were her enemies. The eye of heavenly Tao blinked in the sky, causing the world to ripple like boiling water, but it disappeared in a flash. Does that mean I don't fucking care anymore? Everyone was dumbfounded. Even the eye of heavenly Tao couldn't be matched? Damn. This woman is so strong that she defies the heavens. Everyone was trembling. This kind of strength was completely beyond their imagination. You'll have to walk your own path in the future. As the woman spoke, she looked at Hunyeo with a gentle gaze. Her body continued to dissipate, and finally completely disappeared without a trace. Everyone looked at Hunyeo, and for a moment no one dared to make a move. Who knew if that woman would turn back and attack? Wasn't she also dissipating earlier? In the end, killing 18 stars of Shattering Void Tear was as easy as taking something out of her pocket, and even scared off the eye of heavenly Tao. Hong Long Long, the whole divine ship was wailing, and began to disintegrate and collapse. The divine wood that even the turbulence of the void couldn't tear apart earlier quickly turned into scraps, and even those damaged cannons were the same. In that instant, the divine ship completely disappeared, leaving only ashes on the ground. It was as if its mission was to sail out of the void and give that egg to Hunyeo. Perhaps it was not a coincidence that this ship appeared here, and was attracted here by Hunyeo. Ma Duobao picked up the mountain and river axe on the ground, smiled calmly, and said, "Continue the battle." Hong He no longer held back. The formation patterns on his body shone, interweaving to form a brilliant killing array. The first killing array in the world, capable of killing immortals. Chan Wenshi and Zhuo Qifeng screamed, and were instantly swept in by the killing array, instantly strangled to death. Although the spirit tools in their hands were previously bathed in divine blood, and were extremely terrifying, they were completely suppressed after entering the great ship, their divinity disappearing. Now Ma Duobao suddenly launched an attack, instantly killing two powerful beings. The 8 kings were also like wolves and tigers, launching a fierce attack on the elites of the 5 sections. This was a great battle. The 5 sects were routed, and even the help of the 1,000 Corpse sect was useless. Who would have thought that Ma Duobao actually had the first killing array in the world battle prowess strong enough to kill immortals? In the divine realm that was just empty talk, but here immortals were suppressed by the realm power, making it possible to kill immortals. Moreover, Xiao Miaoyan and Guanyang only had 18 stars of battle prowess. After an 18-eyed corpse king was also strangled, the Shattering Void Tier elites all fled without a care. Under the burning of their life force, their speed was astonishingly fast. However, they could escape, but those below the Shattering Void Tier couldn't. Apart from a limited number of people who were taken away by the Shattering Void Tier elites, they either died in battle or surrendered. The 5 sects rule over the middle state, and their influence over the 4 regions thus came to an end. Some people still escaped. Ling Han shook his head. Xiao Miaoyan and Guanyang had 18 stars of Shattering Void Tier battle prowess, and apart from Ma Duobao, no one could suppress them. If he missed this chance to catch them all in one fell swoop in the future, he would be in the light while the enemy was in the dark and would be restrained. 18 stars of Shattering Void Tier battle prowess was enough to stir up trouble. Tan brother, now that the world is at peace, the remaining few clowns won't be able to stir up any waves. If they dare to show themselves, this emperor will definitely kill them. Ma Duobao laughed. When the skies are split open, this emperor will invite you again to witness the magnificent feat together. All right. Ling Han nodded. He also had to carefully observe Hunyeo, and see how much that egg would affect the little girl. They parted ways and turned back. Ling Han immediately brought Hunyeo into the Black Tower, letting Small Tower examine her carefully. No. Small Tower shook its head. With my current ability I can't do it, unless I recover to my complete state. Ling Han couldn't help but frown and asked Hu Niu, "Niu, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Something's wrong?" Hu Niu thought hard, then nodded and said seriously, "Yes." "Where?" "I'm hungry. This foodie." Chapter 846. That egg was obviously something incredible, far more precious than the reincarnation tea. But Hu Niu didn't change at all, which made Ling Han very puzzled. Amidst such doubts, Ling Han returned to the North region. At this time, the four regions were already unified, with the flag of the Great Ling Empire planted, and as policies that benefited the country and the people were passed down, the hearts of the people were quickly unifying. Ling Han gave it a try, and under the condensation of power of the nation, his battle prowess actually reached a shocking 9 stars of Shattering Void tier. The battle prowess of the Shattering Void tier was too strong, so it could be considered that it was the addition of power of the nation that reached 9 stars of Shattering Void tier, and Ling Han's own battle prowess was almost negligible. And being so strong was because his physique was too strong. If it were another heaven tier, they could at most reach 20 stars of heaven tier battle prowess with the addition of power of the nation, and couldn't possibly improve further, or else their body would first collapse. However, Ling Han was different. His physique was at the level of 10th tier rare metal, enough to withstand 9 stars of Shattering Void tier battle prowess. And this also almost reached the limit of his physique. No wonder Ma Duobao had no intention of expanding his territory and increasing the number of people under his rule. He also had a physique of 10th tier rare metal, and at most received the addition of 10 stars of battle prowess, so it was meaningless for him to expand his territory. Going too far was as bad as not going far enough. Ling Han, however, didn't have such worries. If he charged into the Shattering Void tier, his physique could be improved further, reaching the level of godly metal. Then what was the limit of power of the nation he could withstand? 20 stars, 30 stars, 50 stars. Perhaps all the faith of the people in the whole vast lands could be added to him alone, and he didn't have to worry at all that his body would explode. Only then did Ling Han realize the importance of having a strong physique, which combined with power of the nation made him incredibly powerful. Of course, this was also because he cultivated the indestructible Heaven Scroll, which allowed him to have such a physique. Such strength couldn't be replicated. His spirit was now extremely powerful, and his mental state had advanced into the Shattering Void tier ahead of time, allowing him to perfectly control 9 stars of Shattering Void tier battle prowess. In terms of his understanding of martial art, he was also progressing at an astonishing speed. At his level, martial art was enlightenment. With the strength of his spirit and the improvement of his state of mind, he no longer had any bottlenecks to break through. As long as he continued to increase the accumulation of his origin energy, his advancement would naturally be swift. At this rate, it was extremely possible that he would be able to charge into the Shattering Void tier within a year. The Rain Emperor and Mu Rongqing returned with a large group of people. Now that the 5 sects had been destroyed, the Restore Heaven Academy naturally could no longer be maintained. These people were all elites among elites, geniuses among geniuses. Originally, the 5 sects had planned to bring them to the immortal realm to be hired thugs, which was enough to show that each of them had great potential and were worth nurturing. What Ling Han lacked the least right now was cultivation resources. The Purple Moon Empire was spreading the truth of the reckoning everywhere, and Ling Han also cooperated, announcing the truth to the world in the 4 regions, letting everyone know that to escape the fate of being refined into a realm pill, the only way was to split open the skies. In the beginning, most people were suspicious. After all, they had been brainwashed by the 5 major sects for over 10,000 years. But as time passed, more and more evidence was laid out, and naturally more people would choose to believe it. The more united the people's hearts were, the stronger the power of the nation. With the Rain Emperor's help, Hellion Sun Shui's pressure was instantly greatly reduced. He had also been an emperor for many years, and was obviously shrewd and ruthless in handling affairs, not inferior to her. Ma Duobao had agreed with him that he would use a year's time to prepare, and then split open the skies. Thus, Ling Han planned to cultivate properly in this 1 year. If Ma Duobao could split open the skies, that would naturally be great, and he would bask in the glory, but if he couldn't, then he would take the lead. This was the only way out for the vast lands. Ling Han prepared to change his cultivation technique after a while, not from the sea race but from the 5 sects. The cultivation techniques of the sea race were only suitable for the sea race, but after defeating the 5 sects, Ma Duobao very generously allowed Ling Han to enter and choose a cultivation technique. Ling Han chose an extreme yang technique. This similarly wasn't the most suitable for him, but it was still better than other cultivation techniques. Most importantly, Ling Han only needed to step into the Shattering Void tier. And when he entered the realm of immortals, there would naturally be immortal realm cultivation techniques for him to cultivate. Thus, if the cultivation speed of the Shattering Void tier was slow, then so be it. Some people from the 5 sects still escaped, but now they had become birds startled by the mere twang of a bowstring, and street rats, so how would they dare to show their heads? 3 months passed and everything was extremely peaceful. Ling Han's cultivation was also soaring, and he had already advanced into the 3rd layer of the heaven tier. His body art similarly improved significantly. However, Ling Han believed that if Xiao Miaoyan and the others appeared, then their target would be him. Even if they had eaten leopard's gall, they wouldn't dare to go find Ma Duobao. He was the world's #1 killing formation, and there was definitely no return. They could only leave it to the real immortals to deal with. They had already communicated with the 5 sects of the realm of immortals through a special channel, reporting the matter of the divine ship, and they believed that the realm of immortals would definitely send someone over. That woman was strong beyond common sense, and in the realm of immortals, she was definitely a supreme almighty being. So how noble would the treasure she was guarding even in death be? Thus, Ling Han believed that he and Hunyo would become the main targets of the 5 sects. In addition, the 1,000 Corpse sect would probably also become restless. The reason why they hadn't made a move yet was that they didn't know if Ma Duobao was deliberately using Ling Han as bait to lure them out. Another month passed, and what was supposed to come finally came. Xiao Miaoyan and Guanyang appeared, and with a sweep of their swords, the defensive barrier formed by the totem immediately collapsed. The two of them forced their way in, both brimming with killing intent. Ling Han still not coming out, they shouted one after another. If you still don't come out, we'll slaughter everyone in the Imperial City. And then slaughter a city every day. Can you just watch as so many people die because of you? No. Ling Han stepped out into the air, standing side by side with Xiao Miaoyan and Guanyang, but a confident smile was on his face. I'm here, but the ending won't be what you think, but I'll take you down. Ha 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 ha. Xiao Miaoyan and Guanyang both laughed loudly. They had already ascertained Ma Duobao's location, and if the other party wanted to send reinforcements, it would take at least 3 days. 3 days wasn't enough for them to kill a heaven tier elite a few hundred times. Thus, they weren't in a hurry to make a move, and of course wouldn't deliberately waste time. Where does your confidence come from? Xiao Miaoyan said coldly, exuding anger. A dignified genius of the realm of immortals actually became a street rat after coming to the lower realm, having to hide from place to place. How could she swallow this anger? Now she wanted to vent her anger on Ling Han. If it weren't for the other party's interference, the Purple Moon Empire would have already lost the bet, and couldn't make a move within 100 years. And with 100 years' time, the 5 sects of the realm of immortals should have already set up the passage to the lower realm for immortals. So what if it was the world's #1 killing formation? Even if it couldn't kill, it could still trap and banish him, making him watch helplessly as the living beings in this world were refined into pills. Thus she hated Ling Han even more than Ma Duobao. Ling Han didn't answer, and merely looked into the distance, saying, Azura Demon Emperor, since you've come, why hide from place to place? You're just a puny heaven tier elite. How did you discover this, Lord? Azura Demon Emperor appeared in the distance, his face filled with puzzlement and surprise. Chapter 847. Could it be that Ling Han was shattering his own godly bones? Empress Luanxing could only think of this possibility. But why? Why would he shatter his own godly bones for no reason? One had to realize that the toughness of Ling Han's godly bones had already reached the level of level 4 godly metal. It could be said that he could survive the heavenly tribulation by lying down. This was to temper them into steel. Her heart skipped a beat. Then she was stunned. If he were to advance another step, just how terrifying would his defenses be? Of course, defenses as strong as level 5 godly metal would still be unable to withstand a single blow from her. However, she could deduce from this that the higher Ling Han's cultivation level was, the higher his defenses would also be. They would always be slightly higher than his cultivation level. That was far too terrifying. How could this man from a small world possess such astonishing abilities? Could it be that he had also come from some ancient divine tribe? Fuck! The notionless saint exclaimed in astonishment. His cultivation level was naturally higher than Empress Luanxing's, and he had also lived longer. However, he had never heard of such a frightening physique before. At first, he had thought that Ling Han's physique was so powerful because he had eaten some peerless treasure. Thus, he had thought that it was a one-time use ability. Now, however, it seemed like his physique could actually increase along with his cultivation level. Does this brat also come from some great tribe? The notionless saint felt like he was dreaming. It was already extremely rare for someone with the bloodline of the 9 snake tribe to appear. After all, this tribe was known as an ancient divine tribe, and they had long since ceased to exist in the immortal realm. However, with Ling Han's freakish talent, he definitely wouldn't lose to them. Yet another descendant of an ancient divine tribe. The notionless saint was overjoyed after his initial shock. If 2 descendants of an ancient divine tribe were to mate, what kind of heaven-defying foundation would their offspring possess? This had never happened even in ancient times. This was because there were far too few ancient tribes, so few that they were pitifully few. Even in ancient times, when there were still a few ancient tribes, there had never been a marriage alliance. I'm really looking forward to it, he murmured. Ling Han shattered his godly bones and accepted the tempering of the heavenly tribulation. He continued to circulate the indestructible heaven scroll as he advanced toward a higher cultivation level. To Ling Han, undergoing heavenly tribulation was a trivial matter. Tempering his godly bones was the most important matter. He had nothing to do anyway, so he summoned his divine demon sword. Since this sword could devour godly metal to increase its quality, it should also benefit from being tempered by heavenly tribulation. Half a day quickly passed. Ling Han reconstructed his godly bones and circulated a drop of indestructible true fluid. Even though he was in the void, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was still drawn toward him, consolidating his Tao foundation. Added with the rich life essence in this place, his vitality naturally recovered. Moreover, his blood and chi surged, displaying a vigorous life force. Ling Han descended and retrieved a new set of clothes to change into. Under the power of the heavenly tribulation, his clothes had naturally been reduced to dust. He looked up at the sky, frowning slightly. This was because when the heavenly tribulation rained down, this space actually continued to expand, making enough space for him to undergo heavenly tribulation. This prevented the heavenly tribulation from destroying this space. As expected of a saint, it was beyond his imagination. Damn brat, who would have thought that you would make my eyes light up even more? The notionless saint laughed heartily and said, the toughness of your physique has already reached the level of level 5 godly metal, right? Ling Han knew that he couldn't hide this from the eyes of a saint, even though this saint had died long ago, and only a remnant of his soul remained. He carefully sensed his new physique and said, I don't think so. It's only far superior to level 4 godly metal, and there's still some distance between it and level 5. Ling Han would probably have to form 5 mountains and rivers, and undergo another heavenly tribulation before his godly bones could reach the level of level 5 godly metal. Hurry up and give birth to a disciple for me, the notionless saint said excitedly. I can't be bothered with you, Ling Han said as he sat down in a cross-legged position and continued to cultivate. Although the notionless saint still possessed astonishing abilities, strength alone was useless when it came to giving birth. He humphed and said, do the 2 of you want to stay here forever? This place isn't bad either. There's an abundance of life essence here, and it's perfect for cultivation, Ling Han said with a smile. He naturally wouldn't weaken his aura. Just wait and see, the notionless saint said angrily as he disappeared. Time passed by very quickly. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year. Ling Han and Ling Han had already been trapped for a whole year. Though this was practically negligible for immortals, when they thought that this kind of life could possibly last for another 10 years, 100 years, or even 1,000 years, they could not accept it. Ling Han's cultivation level had already soared to the peak stage of the consummate level of the mountain river tier. Next, he would either form 5 mountains and rivers and reach the true pinnacle of the mountain river tier, or attempt to break through to the sun moon tier and advance to a brand new cultivation level. However, the notionless saint's patience was also about to run out. He once again spoke through the stone tablet. My time is limited. You forced my hand. Oh, you're not trying to kill us, are you? Also, how can your time be limited? Haven't you already died once? Ling Han asked with a chuckle. Humph. I've refined my own divine sense, so how can it last for too long? The notionless saint said coldly. Brat, since you're unwilling to take the initiative, I'll let this little girl take the initiative. Boom! Empress Luanxing's aura suddenly became incredibly terrifying. In this instant, she had recovered her heavenly body tier cultivation level. However, Ling Han didn't think that this was good news. On the contrary, the notionless saint had already said such words, so he definitely didn't have good intentions. Empress Luanxing's appearance was shrouded in an aura of primal chaos again, and her figure also became faintly discernible. However, her figure was still perfect and mesmerizing. She raised her head to look at Ling Han. Although he couldn't see her eyes, Ling Han felt as if he had been targeted by a wolf. This wasn't the feeling of a hungry wolf targeting a rabbit. Rather, it was the feeling of a female wolf in heat targeting a male wolf. Old pervert, what on earth did you do? Ling Han asked in shock. I merely made this little girl enter her heat period. The notionless saint said with a chuckle. All right, I'm leaving. I won't disturb you anymore. Old bastard, stop right there. Pung. Ling Han hadn't even finished speaking when Empress Luanxing had already pounced over. She instantly wrapped her arms around him, and like a female leopard in heat, she pinned him down tightly and tried to push him down. No, it was more like a beautiful snake that had wrapped itself around him. Oi, I've already restrained myself, so can't you also restrain yourself? Ling Han said as he pushed Empress Luanxing with all his might. However, so what if he had reached the consummate level of the mountain river tier? How could he possibly be a match for a heavenly body tier elite? Empress Luanxing's soft murmur was completely meaningless, yet it was filled with allure, causing Ling Han's entire body to involuntarily heat up. She was a super seductive beauty that could drive men crazy with a single look. Even Shui Yinyu paled in comparison to her. She was like a country bumpkin, being wrapped around by such a beautiful woman, who was actively asking to be pushed down. Who could refuse? Ling Han gritted his teeth. Although he had once fantasized about capturing this empress and spanking her bottom after he reached the great accomplishment realm, fantasies were only fantasies after all. Taking advantage of others while they were down wasn't what a real man would do. Empress Luanxing was already kissing him. She continuously searched for Ling Han's lips, and when she couldn't find them, she would kiss randomly. Ling Han really wanted to give himself a slap. Being wrapped around by such an exquisite seductive beauty, he was actually still thinking about how to escape? Was he being stupid? With a rip, a large piece of his clothes was torn off, and his weapon was almost exposed. Would little Han be pushed down by the Empress? Chapter 848. Inside the Black Tower, no matter how strong you were, you could only obediently accept your fate. Ling Han turned around and faced Guan Yang. His battle with Azura Demon Emperor seemed long, but in reality, it was only a matter of 2 or 3 strikes. At this time, Guan Yang was still in great shock, and had just recovered a little. Pung, in the distance, Xiao Miaoyan flew out from the broken mountain. The clothes on her body were torn in many places, revealing her snow-white skin, extremely alluring. There was blood at the corner of her mouth, her pretty face pale, her hair somewhat messy, and her eyes filled with fear. She was really scared. How could the current Ling Han be a match for him? She was about to cry. In the divine realm, 18 stars of shattering void tier could almost sweep away peers of the same age, at least in the sphere of influence controlled by the 5 sects. But in the lower realm, she was repeatedly slapped in the face. Ma Duobao, the elites in the mysterious ship, and now there was an additional Ling Han. Could it be that this was the divine realm? Guanyang did not say another word, and immediately turned around and ran. Ling Han smiled slightly and said, "Brother Guan, you are a genius of the divine realm, running over so shamelessly and arrogantly, but running away with your tail between your legs without a single move. This can't be justified, right? Come, let's exchange a move." "Exchange your sister?" Guanyang's face twitched. Didn't he see that Xiao Miaoyan had only exchanged a move, and the result was that she was sent flying? Don't look like she was fine now, but in reality, she had suffered a very serious internal injury, and if not treated in time, there would be no end of trouble. But now there was no time to treat injuries, and escaping was the most important. Save her life, and when she returned to the divine realm, there would always be spirit medicine that could treat her. Brother Guan is so uncooperative. I feel very helpless. Ling Han used the demon fairy step, and with the support of the thunderclap ninth heaven, his speed was as fast as a ghost, and he instantly blocked in front of Guanyang. Guanyang gritted his teeth and there was a flash of light on his body. He ignited his origin energy and planned to make a grand escape. "Don't you despise the living beings of the lower realms?" Ling Han laughed coldly. He struck out with his palm, unleashing the earth-overturning seal. Golden light filled the sky. "Why are you running now? Come fight me, an ant from the lower realms." Guanyang fled. Bang! His speed was fast, but the space around him was sealed by the earth-overturning seal, and he was bounced back as soon as he collided with it. He was dumbstruck. With the ignition of his life force, even battle prowess of 20 stars of shattering void tier would not be able to stop his escape, but now he was actually blocked. What did this mean? What did this mean? Ling Han's battle prowess had already surpassed 20 stars? Power stopped at the limit of 20 stars of shattering void tier did not mean that battle prowess was the same. "I'll use one sword. If you can block it, I'll spare your life," Ling Han boomed. "That's what I said." These two sentences were announced to the world through the totem. "Long live your majesty. Slay gods. Slay gods." The people of the imperial capital knew the truth, and immediately cheered. Although the other cities did not understand, they only felt their blood boil, feeling that their emperor was too domineering. Of course, Hellion Sun Shui immediately explained the whole story through the totem. This was precisely the best time to establish an invincible image for Ling Han. "Kill her, seize the treasure, and refine it yourself." Xiao Miaoyan revealed a cruel and greedy expression. This was really delivering herself to her doorstep. "You think too much." At this moment, a cold voice came from behind her, causing every pore on her body to tense up, and her forehead was instantly covered with sweat. She turned around in panic, only to see that Ling Han had already brandished the Revere life sword. "Don't kill me, I can be your woman," she screamed. "With my looks and talent in martial art, I will definitely be of help to you." She sneered inwardly. This was obviously just a stalling tactic, and she would kill this man at all costs. "In your dreams." Ling Han's sword swept over, not stopping at all. What? She was so beautiful, and her talent in martial art was so high, and he actually dared to lay his hands on her. Xiao Miaoyan gave a stern shout, and the wings behind her spread out again, wanting to leap to the extreme to avoid this fatal blow. Pooh! The sword streaked past and a head flew up. Her face still carried disbelief and shock, and her hot blood spurted out, shaking the heaven and earth. Pa! The headless body fell down, and without even twitching she died instantly. This was the world's #1 killing sword. Ling Han withdrew his sword and said, "How was it? Did you injure me badly?" "It hurts." "No?" Hunyou pouted, very unhappy. Ling Han took out spirit medicine to treat Hunyou, and said with a smile, "You're really daring, even daring to stop her. I was scared stiff by you just now. Don't be smashed to pieces." A shattering void tier elite fleeing for her life, burning her life force, and possessing 18 stars of shattering void tier battle prowess. Under this collision, perhaps even a shattering void tier elite would be smashed to pieces, let alone a heaven tier elite. However, Hunyou was Hunyou after all, unique, and couldn't be measured with common sense. Hehe, this ugly woman also wants to be Ling Han's woman. Niu won't agree. Niu grabbed Ling Han with her other hand. Ling Han is Niu's. She expressed a strong desire to monopolize him, but there was a trace of worry in the depths of her eyes. Ling Han laughed loudly. This little girl really hadn't changed. It was like this when she was 5 and it was the same when she was 10. However, the little girl had also grown up, and could now be called a little girl, with a hint of femininity. Niu wants to eat a lot of delicious food to nourish my body. Niu reached out to Ling Han for food. Ling Han nodded and first searched Xiao Miaoyan's body, but didn't find a spatial spirit tool, which was inconsistent with her identity. Perhaps coming from the divine realm would destroy the spatial spirit tool, or else they could bring a lot of treasures, and wouldn't each bring only a drop of divine blood. He and Niu entered the Black Tower, and first prepared food for the little girl so that she could eat and drink to her heart's content, forgetting the pain of her broken hand. Then Ling Han grabbed Azura Demon Emperor. In the Black Tower, Ling Han was a god. Azura Demon Emperor trembled. He had already been taught a lesson by Small Tower, and now had no temper, obedient like a grandson. Although he was also called Emperor, his aura was far too different from that of Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire. I said, "I'll tell you a big secret, don't kill me." Azura Demon Emperor immediately cried out when he saw Ling Han. Previously, Small Tower had already proved that his life was extremely fragile here. Others refined the Chaos Source Rock, so what was a wisp of his demonic chi? Ling Han crossed his legs. He naturally didn't have a good attitude towards this kind of greedy person. If the other party was unyielding even in death, he could at least win his respect. He said snappily, "Who told you what secret you can use to avoid death? You'll definitely be interested in this secret." Azura Demon Emperor hurriedly shouted, "It concerns the entire vast lands." Chapter 850. Then tell me, Ling Han said indifferently. "You have to first swear not to kill me." Azura Demon Emperor made a request. Ling Han glared and said, "Forget it, I'm not interested." He raised his palm and was about to attack. Don't talk nicely, don't be so fierce." Azura Demon Emperor hurriedly backed down and said, "I can reveal some secrets first." "Speak." Azura Demon Emperor deliberately coughed and said, "The lower realm is a small world." Wasn't this nonsense? If it wasn't a small world, why would it be targeted by the 5 sects of the divine realm? "Nonsense, you die faster, not to mention making fun of me," Ling Han said coldly. Azura Demon Emperor wasn't afraid this time and said, "But what if I told you that until 3 or 4 million years ago, the lower realm was still a part of the divine realm?" "What?" This time Ling Han finally revealed a shocked expression. What did this mean? The lower realm was originally a part of the divine realm, so how could it leave the divine realm and become a small world? He looked at Azura Demon Emperor suspiciously and said, "Don't tell me you deliberately made up this story to live? That was too ridiculous. I can swear to the heavens that everything I said is true." Azura Demon Emperor was anxious and hurriedly swore to the heavens. Ling Han thought for a moment, then said, "All right, tell me everything that you know from beginning to end. Make it very clear and make it very clear. If this news is true, it's not like I can't spare your life." "Thank you, young Master Han, thank you, young Master Han," Azura Demon Emperor hurriedly said, his face full of flattery. He was now a cloud of black fog that could continuously change into any expression he wanted. "Speak." Ling Han waved his hand. This guy didn't deserve to be called Emperor. It was an insult. Yes. Azura Demon Emperor organized his thoughts and said, "The lower realm was in the divine realm long ago, but suddenly it disappeared. This aroused the curiosity of many important figures in the netherworld and divine realm, and they all began to investigate. In the end, I came to the conclusion that this continent must have broken away from the immortal world and become a small world. Out of curiosity, the ultimate elite once again investigated the lower realm, and discovered an even more shocking matter. And that was that as early as 10 million years ago, the lower realm was actually a small world, and had entered the immortal realm through the method of opening the sky. This is something that's never happened before. A minor world came from opening the heavens, and then it was separated from the God world and turned back into a minor world. The ultimate elites have all deduced that a precious treasure has appeared in the vast lands, which is why such a change has occurred. Thus, the great forces are all searching for this lower realm that has returned to the small world, wanting to know what kind of secret treasure has been born there, and seize the opportunity to seize it. But there are far too many small worlds. Furthermore, this place is called the lower realm, and it wasn't called that in the immortal realm before. Therefore, no one knew that this small world controlled by such weak forces as the five sects was actually the former divine land that almighty beings had spent countless resources to find. Ling Han waved his hand and said, "Since the lower realm wasn't called that before, how did you know that this was the continent that had been separated from the immortal realm?" "That's very simple. I came here because I was ordered to enter, to verify if this small world was the target that the ultimate elites were searching for. However, I had just entered here and I was already suppressed." Azura Demon Emperor appeared somewhat depressed. "Then how did you verify?" Ling Han finally became interested. If this continent had appeared in the immortal realm, it would inevitably be tainted with the aura of the immortal realm. Although this place has been cleaned up very cleanly, I still smelled the aura of the immortal realm at the core of the continent, Azura Demon Emperor said proudly. "I'm not bragging, but this ability is only possessed by people of my race, or else I wouldn't have been sent here." Ling Han thought for a moment and said, "The Netherworld sent out many beings like you to search in various small worlds. Young Master Han is so smart, you're absolutely right." Azura Demon Emperor hurriedly flattered. His little life was now completely in the hands of Ling Han. Ling Han couldn't help but sink into deep thought. If the lower realm was originally a small world, and had already experienced splitting open the skies once, but later degenerated into a small world for some reason, then that was too shocking. Even the ultimate elites of the immortal realm and the netherworld were moved, which meant that even they couldn't do it, so it made them curious. Even the netherworld that originally had nothing to do with it was concerned, and sent out a large number of people into the small world to search. His heart involuntarily thumped. Could it be that what these ultimate elites were searching for was the Black Tower? Small Tower had always said that if it unleashed its full power, it could destroy the lower realm, but it would attract the true ultimate elites to snatch it. Thus, it couldn't unleash its great power, but needed to first repair itself. Then when it moved, it could suppress its aura, and not be sensed by the ultimate elites of the immortal realm. He took a deep breath. To be able to make a small world split open the skies, ascend into the immortal realm, and then turn back into a small world again, what kind of power was that? What exactly was the Black Tower's background? The indestructible heaven scroll could allow his physique to reach the level of rare metal one tier higher than his tier, and this was still the power of the first level cultivation technique. So how powerful would the second and third levels be? Who created the Black Tower and how did it fall? Who did it that even someone as strong as the Black Tower was heavily injured? Ling Han only felt that the more he knew, the more mysteries there were. He shook his head, and suppressed all of this to the bottom of his heart. In future, when he entered the immortal realm, he could slowly investigate, such as who the owner of splitting open the skies was. Also, the mountain and river axe couldn't have been forged by that person, right? "Hey, young Master Han, can I leave now?" Azura Demon Emperor's face was filled with a vulgar smile. Ling Han also smiled and said, "What do you think?" Azura Demon Emperor looked disappointed. He also knew that this secret was too important, and Ling Han definitely wouldn't allow him to tell others. He was going to be imprisoned here for the rest of his life. The environment here wasn't bad, and the place was also large, and there were spirit herbs everywhere. Although he didn't eat spirit herbs, there were too few people, making him very unaccustomed. "You stay here, and if you perform well, I can let you out for some fresh air," Ling Han said. When he truly advanced into the Shattering Void tier, even if he released the Azura Demon Emperor, he would be able to do as he pleased. Hunyo's injuries recovered very quickly. This little girl was also a freak, and now there was an additional divine egg in her body. Who knew what kind of changes would happen? Let's go back first. Ling Han and Hunyo exited the Black Tower, returning to the Imperial City. This time, Xiao Miaoyan, Guanyang, and Azura Demon Emperor were all dealt with, And among the remaining powerful elites, there was only the 18-eyed corpse king of the Thousand Corpse sect. Much easier to deal with. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 851. The starship silently sailed through the universe. It was quiet and peaceful. Shua, all of a sudden, a flash of sword light swept past. It was incredibly dazzling, and was condensed with frightening divine patterns. In an instant, it illuminated the nearby galaxy, and even the distant sun was eclipsed. As this strike swept past, the divine chains of regulations moved, creating ripples. Hung without any suspense, the starship was immediately slashed into pieces. This was a small starship, and its defenses could only reach the peak stage of the Sun-Moon tier at most. And that strike just now was shockingly at the heavenly body tier. A figure appeared, his whole body entwined with the aura of primal chaos. It was impossible to tell whether he was male or female, tall or short. He stood in the galaxy and carefully observed. It seemed as if he was not at ease. He inspected every piece of the starship, and after confirming that there was not a shred of life on them, he finally raised his hand, summoning a small starship and steered it away. In the galaxy, the ripples returned to calm, and deathly stillness returned. One day later, that small starship actually appeared again, and only left after circling the vicinity once. Inside the Black Tower, Ling Han said darkly, "How cautious." When the starship had been attacked, he just happened to be inside the Black Tower, so he did not even need to dodge. After he discovered that this sneak attacker was extremely meticulous, he did not rush to leave, but instead waited patiently here. True enough, the other party had turned back to attack. This kind of thinking was very frightening. "Brat, it seems like you've offended a lot of people," Notionless Saint said. He had already heard Ling Han mention that the starship had been attacked. "It's not seems, it's true." Ling Han broke into a grin and said, "However, it won't be long before I'll be able to force my way back and drag out all those who want to harm me. I'll make them suffer the consequences of their own actions." These words were very bold, yet Notionless Saint could not find any words to refute them. With a precious treasure like the reincarnation tree, Ling Han indeed had the right to be proud. Even he was tempted to comprehend Tao under this tree. Ling Han was trying to guess the identity of this sneak attacker. Could be the Dark Night Hall, or it could also be someone else. However, there were only so many heavenly body tier elites on Joint Peace Planet. As long as he was powerful enough, he could definitely find these people, and he would be able to confirm their identity by identifying their auras. Every elite had a unique aura that belonged to them, and it was extremely difficult to imitate. However, how should I get to the Flying Cloud Planet now? Ling Han was in a dilemma. After losing the galactic coordinates, it was as if he had really entered a massive labyrinth. Moreover, there was not the slightest bit of improvement, and he could only make blind guesses. The price of this was naturally time. Perhaps when he truly had to set foot on the Flying Cloud Planet, it would already be a matter of decades or centuries later. No matter what, I have to try my luck. Previously, the starship had already flown for more than 2 months, and it was not too far from the Flying Cloud Planet either. There should be a chance. Ling Han drew out the cloud-piercing shuttle and tried his best to identify his direction. He then began to travel through the galaxy. This time he was really walking blindly. A month later, the Flying Cloud Planet was still far beyond his reach, and he had no idea where it was at all. Ling Han sighed repeatedly. Though he had not been idle in this month, and added with the 2 months before this, he had spent the majority of his time comprehending Tao under the reincarnation tree, accumulating his comprehension and opening up the 5th mountain river. His comprehension was extremely deep now. However, when it came to the problem of finding the Flying Cloud Planet, he seemed to have reached a dead end. Another half a month passed, and his comprehension was already sufficient. After all, he still had the Notionless Saint by his side to provide reference, and he also had the support of the demonic power source. He was about to break through, not to the Sun-Moon tier, but rather the pinnacle of the Mountain River tier. Was it fast? Not at all. It should be known that Ling Han possessed the reincarnation tree, and counting from the time he had left the large tomb in the galaxy, he had already comprehended for more than 100 years. If he still could not comprehend the secret of the fifth mountain river in this time, then it would be impossible for him to do so in the future. Ling Han put away the cloud-piercing shuttle and stood proudly in the galaxy. Hong Long Long, the heavenly tribulation arrived as promised. This was the most all-pervasive power in the world, and nothing could stop the arrival of the heavenly tribulation. Ling Han sighed. Only slightly more than a year had passed, and he was going to experience hellish torture again. Godly bones shatter. He voluntarily shattered his godly bones and tempered them under the heavenly tribulation. There seemed to be only a difference of 1 level between level 4 godly metal and level 5, but even a 9-star genius at the peak stage of the mountain river tier could not match a sun moon tier who had just broken through. There was also a natural chasm between level 4 godly metal and level 5. Previously, Ling Han could only be considered to have a physique that was above level 4 and below level 5. Only after experiencing this kind of tempering would he be able to reach the level of the mountain river tier. He nodded internally. If he did not cultivate to the pinnacle of the 5 great cultivation levels, his physique would not be able to reach the strongest level in this world. Just thinking about it was too frightening. Even if he did not have the strength to truss up a chicken, even a Saint King would not be able to do anything to him. However, he was not the one who had created the indestructible heaven scroll. Even if he was the second person in this world to cultivate this cultivation technique, what about the first person? That elite must have died. And that was why the Black Tower was looking for a new master. The first person who created the indestructible heaven scroll had definitely cultivated to the pinnacle, but he had still died. This meant that the pinnacle of the indestructible heaven scroll was not the pinnacle of martial arts, and that was why there was a stronger power that could shatter it. Ling Han collected his distracting thoughts. He was still very far away from the pinnacle of martial arts, and there was no need for him to consider this kind of thing. All the godly bones in his body had been shattered, and the smaller the particles, the more completely they had been tempered by the heavenly tribulation. They were all level 5 godly metal, so there was definitely still a difference. Just like how the low extreme was divided into early stage, middle stage, late stage, and peak stage. Either he did not do it, or he did it to the best of his ability. Hung long long. Thunder rumbled in the void. The regulations of heaven and earth in the galaxy were very weak, and mountain river tier cultivators could fly. Moreover, space was also very easily damaged. As the 30,000-meter-long lightning wreaked havoc, it was as if this place had become a sea of lightning, incredibly dazzling. Even Ling Han felt that the heavenly tribulation this time was different. It was much more powerful than the ones in the past. 5 mountains and rivers, the true pinnacle, could not be tolerated by the heavens. Half a day later, the heavenly tribulation disappeared, and everything returned to normal. Meanwhile, Ling Han stood silently, experiencing it. Unlike before, his power had not skyrocketed. Instead, a door had been opened that allowed him to further increase his power, soaring to the height of 7 stars, 8 stars, 9 stars, and even 10 stars. But exactly how many stars he could reach would depend on his natural talent and comprehension ability, as well as how far he could cultivate the 5th mountain river. In the distance, a faint light flickered, and he saw a starship sailing straight over. Ling Han subconsciously wanted to hide in the Black Tower, but he immediately came to his senses. This was not the sneak attacker from before, but rather his savior. Probably because the commotion caused by the heavenly tribulation had been too great, it had attracted this starship, and it had deliberately turned around to come over. Alright, now he finally did not have to run around randomly in the galaxy. Ling Han broke into a smile. Good things really came one after another. He drew out an appearance disguise pill and swallowed it. Chapter 852. This voice stirred the water and emitted a powerful dragon's might, making everyone tremble and almost kneel down. In the sea race, bloodline was extremely important. Just like a human spiritual infant tier elite writing a decree could suppress a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator to the point of being unable to move. But fortunately, martial arts kings could resist such pressure. But in the sea race, bloodline overpowered everything. Previously, Hellion Tianyun was only in the Gushing Spring tier, yet suppressed Hellion Rong and Wenren Jia to the point of kneeling, and now it was the same. Helian Tunyun snorted and walked to the front with his hands behind his back. He was obviously just a little kid, but his face was full of seniority as he said, "This lord is here, quickly have Ao Xinghua come out to greet me." "Boy, dare to be rude to the Sea Emperor," the voice said coldly. "Haha, don't talk about these useless things. The Sea race is a place of bloodline, and this lord's bloodline is pure. Who dares to be disrespectful to this lord?" Helian Tianyun sneered. You also know that the Sea race is a place of bloodline?" In the sneer 100 people walked out of the strait. These people all wore dragon robes, each emitting a powerful aura. They were all in the Shattering Void tier, and they all had true dragon bloodline, extremely pure, far surpassing Helian Rong and Xin Yu Tong. It wasn't without reason that the Ao family could unify the four seas. "Hurry up and come see this lord," Helian Tianyun said proudly. Although it was said to be an expedition, it was basically impossible to have a battle. Once his dragon's might was released, it was completely a one-sided suppression. So it was just a formality. He activated his dragon's might and charged towards the Ao family. Wang, as the dragon's might spread, many people of the Ao family were like the Four Seas royal families before, shivering and almost kneeling down. Helian Tianyun was immensely proud and said, "Disciple, not yet, this lord is that awesome." He turned around and said to Ling Jianshui, "Humph." In the sneer, a young man walked out, actually unaffected by Helian Tianyun's dragon's might. He said indifferently, "You're just a false dragon, I'm the true dragon." Hong, he similarly released his dragon's might, and an aura that was in no way inferior to Helian Tianyun swept out. Instantly, the royal clans of the Four Seas all lost their battle prowess. Ling Han frowned and directly stored Helian Sun Shui into the Black Tower. Although her bloodline was also very pure, it was far from Helian Tianyun's level. Now she couldn't even stand steadily. Ling Dongxing and Yu Hongchong naturally entered the Black Tower after entering the Sea region. Helian Tianyun was astonished. This young man was actually not affected by his dragon might, and the dragon might he exuded was not inferior to his. How is that possible? He had cultivated to the height of an alternative dragon countless years ago, and in the end, he was reborn from a true dragon's tooth. In terms of dragon's might alone, at least in this whole world, there was no dragon that could rival him. Why did someone with a bloodline that could rival him come? From the God realm, right? Ling Han interrupted. Since the five sects could send people down, why couldn't the Ao clan? Smart, the young man said with a smile. He looked handsome and had a breathtaking heroic spirit. There were 2 dragon horns on his head, exuding an ancient and noble aura. Horn of a true dragon. Helian Tianyun trembled. He was born from a true dragon's tooth, and was naturally extremely sensitive to the aura of a true dragon. No wonder the other could stand against him. So he was a descendant of a true dragon from the God realm. Ling Han's heart moved. Horn of a true dragon. Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire wanted him to collect 4 divine objects, and wasn't one of them a true dragon's horn? TSK, if he cut it off and threw it to that guy, could he exchange it for a mystical power? Truly a frog at the bottom of a well. The young man shook his head, his face full of disdain. Under the God tier, how could it reach the level of a true dragon? Only those that reach the Genesis tier are qualified to be called a true dragon. Pay. The corner of Ling Han's mouth instantly twitched. One had to reach the Genesis tier to be called a true dragon, so on and so forth. One had to reach the Genesis tier to be a true phoenix. Then how would he get a true dragon's horn and heavenly phoenix feather? If he could really get them, then he would definitely have to reach the Genesis tier, which would be a top-notch elite in the God tier. So would he still need to learn the mystical power of the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire? Fuck. No wonder this guy wasn't willing to show his true face. Was he afraid of being cursed by him? Helian Tianyun was also a bit shocked, and couldn't accept it for a moment. He believed that his bloodline was already extremely pure, and could completely be regarded as a true dragon. He sneered and said, "Don't try to deceive people with your lies. Brat, hurry up and come over to pay respects to this lord." He himself only looked 5 or 6 years old, yet called someone else a brat, not knowing any shame. "My name is Ao Jian." This young man's expression was calm. appearing neither anxious nor impatient. In terms of demeanor, Hellion Tianyun, who had already lived one lifetime, was really hard to match. The sea race determined seniority based on bloodline. Now, since the purity of our bloodline is the same, then let's decide the victor with strength. Hellion Tianyun looked at Ling Han, a bit dumbfounded. These words were of course reasonable. The sea race obviously competed in bloodline first, but if the purity of bloodline was about the same, then they would compete in strength just like Hellion Rong and Wenren. Yeah, there was a bit of a gap in bloodline, but it couldn't form an overwhelming advantage, so they would fight. But the problem was, this Aojian was a fucking shattering void tier. What the hell, starting a battle would mean certain death. Ling Han couldn't help but admit that they made a bad move this time, underestimating the God Realm. At first he thought it would be as smooth as the 5 sections. Even if someone from the God Realm came, so what? Geniuses with battle prowess of 20 stars of shattering void tier were extremely rare even in the God Realm, but they would still be swept aside by Ma Duo Bao. Although Hellion Tianyun's cultivation level dropped, his bloodline was noble, and this was continuously proven along the way. But now, everything would be reversed. If Hellion Tianyun died in battle, the sea race would naturally return to the Ao family's control. It would be extremely easy, and it would only be a battle. Shattering void tier against a heaven tier. Was there even the slightest bit of suspense? The 5 sects could send out a genius of 18 stars of shattering void tier, so why couldn't the Ao family? Shit. Ling Han immediately shook his head at Hellion Tianyun. Whether it was him or Hellion Tianyun, what the two lacked the most was time. As long as they were given another 2 or 3 years, no, maybe only 1 year's time, they could become the most powerful beings in this world, not fearing anyone. They definitely couldn't start a battle now. Fighting would only lead to death. Hellion Tianyun nodded at Ling Han, expressing his approval of Ling Han's method. Ling Han transmitted a few more words to Hellion Rong through divine sense, then stored the rabbit, rock spirit, and Hunyo into the Black Tower. He then grabbed Hellion Tianyun, turned around and ran. Of course he ran. If he didn't run, why would he stay and drink tea? Everyone was dumbfounded. Why did he run? Hellion Rong received Ling Han's transmission and reacted the fastest, immediately saying, "Fake true dragon, don't run." However, he was suppressed by Aojian's dragon's might and couldn't pursue at all, so he could only shout for show. Only then did the royal families of the 4 seas react, joining the ranks of condemnation. It couldn't be helped. In the sea race where bloodline determined everything, they could only firmly state their position now to avoid the imperial family settling accounts later on. This was also why Ling Han wanted Hellion Rong to denounce him, because Hellion Rong could run, but the Hellion family couldn't. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 853. Ling Han and Hellion Tianyun ran. As long as they kept their lives, there would be a time to return in the future, or else everything would be for naught. Although they weren't old now, they had already lived a lifetime, so how could they still act impulsively? That would be a fool. Want to run? Aojian immediately launched a pursuit. Only he was qualified to pursue, because the others, even the imperial family, would be suppressed by Hellion Tianyun's dragon might, and it would be in vain to chase. He was a genius of the divine realm's dragon race, flowing with the blood of a true dragon. Currently, he already had 19 stars of shattering void tier battle prowess, only a hair's breadth away from extreme battle prowess. Thus he was extremely conceited. Freeze for me. Aojian continuously performed hand seals, controlling the flow of the water to crash towards Ling Han and Hellion Tianyun. He was a descendant of a true dragon, born with the ability to control water. This was a wave drawn by a shattering void tier elite, and Ling Han and Hellion Tianyun only had heaven tier cultivation. How could they block it? Pong pong pong, they were slapped by the waves, shaking their whole body numb. Fortunately, one of them had a physique of 10th tier rare metal, and the other was slightly inferior, but not by much. Otherwise, this wave alone would be enough to shatter them into pieces. However, Aojian took the opportunity to pursue. Fuck, this is really a big loss. Ling Han finally unleashed the teleportation talisman. This time it wasn't for show, and he really planned to use it. Otherwise, being trapped in this sea and unable to escape, he might still have to use the teleportation talisman in the end. Teleportation talisman? Aojian's gaze flickered, and he hurriedly sped up, wanting to stop Ling Han and Helian Tianyun from leaving. See you next time, little brat. When the time comes, I'll definitely kill you, Helian Tianyun said fiercely. To think that he, a dignified alternative dragon, was actually beaten into a sorry state by another little dragon. He couldn't swallow this anger. Shua Aojian reached out and stabbed a long spear. But when the spear tip landed, it only created a vacuum layer in the seawater. Ling Han and Helian Tianyun had already disappeared without a trace. Damn it! His eyes shone coldly, appearing very regretful. To be honest, he wouldn't chase them to the mainland because he had already heard that there was an extremely powerful human there. Moreover, he was even a natural killing formation. In addition to the boost from the power of the nation, his battle prowess had broken through to 20 stars. He was afraid that he would break there. What a joke. He was a dignified descendant of a true dragon, and his future prospects were limitless. How could he risk his life in this lowly little world? The purpose of this place was only to provide them with realm pills. Damn it! How could they have teleportation talismans? Even in the god world, they were extremely rare items. Xiao with a flash, Ling Han and Helian Tianyun had already appeared on the surface of the sea. Where are we? Ling Han gazed into the distance. Helian Tianyun sniffed with his nose and said, in my opinion, it should be the West Sea. Ling Han couldn't help but reveal a strange expression. You can even smell that? Nonsense, the waters of the 4 seas are all different. How could this lord not be able to smell it? Helian Tianyun snorted, appearing very arrogant. Then he asked strangely, brat, how could you have teleportation talismans? Although this thing is famous, even this lord has never obtained one. Ling Han's heart moved, and he thought of the big news revealed by Azura Demon Emperor. If the vast lands had originally stayed in the god world, then it shouldn't be unacceptable for some god-tier items to appear here. Perhaps Ma Duobao dug it out from a grave. This fatty was really quite a nice person, actually giving him such a precious item. Someone gave it to me, Ling Han said casually. Such a precious item was given? Helian Tianyun was surprised. Quick, who is that person? Introduce him to this lord. This lord doesn't mind becoming good friends with him. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh and said, you really have some similarities with him. He told Helian Tianyun about Ma Duobao as he returned to the continent. Because they were in the West Sea, they obviously went to the West region first, then turned to the North region and returned to the Imperial City. With their speed, they finally left the ocean region after 7 days and set foot on land. The people in the Black Tower also knew what happened. Aside from Hu Nyo who ran out, the others still stayed inside to make it easier for them to hurry on their way. However, Ling Han would sometimes carry his son out to warm up the father-son relationship. The West region was now also the territory of the Great Ling Empire, and with the clone of the totem, Ling Han only needed to contact it to find out the movements of the entire Great Ling Empire. At first, he just suddenly thought of it and connected with the totem, but after receiving some information, he immediately revealed a shocked expression. The thing originally buried under the ancient mining area of the Fire Country finally came out. Through the totem's shadow, he saw blurry shadows, but the humanoid creatures were wrapped in black air currents and extremely powerful. They attacked cities and strongholds along the way, and when they conquered a city, they refined everyone in the city into walking corpses. They were similarly wrapped in black air, but their strength wasn't that great, and they became their vassals. Fortunately, refining a city required a considerable amount of time, and they hadn't completely occupied the desolate north, so they wouldn't enter the large territory of the North region through the fallen moon gorge for a while. What's wrong? Helian Tianyun asked casually. Ling Han explained the situation, and Helian Tianyun also frowned. Of all times, given time, the two of them would be the strongest elites with battle prowess of 20 stars of shattering void tier. However, the heavens seemed to be deliberately making things difficult for them, not even giving them a year's time, setting them difficult problems one after another. Ling Han immediately decided to let the rock spirit make a trip to the Purple Moon Empire to ask for reinforcements, while he immediately charged back. Whether it was out of a sense of responsibility or for his own considerations, he had to stop those people in the ancient mining area. They buried themselves and transformed themselves with the Inchi underground, turning living people into netherworld bodies, and even wanted to turn this small world into a netherworld world. At that time, if they opened the sky again, they would ascend into the netherworld. Absolutely not. Ling Han used power of the nation's support, and his power instantly soared to 9 stars of shattering void tier. Although the desolate north was small, power of the nation was still somewhat affected after it fell. Otherwise, he should have the power of 10 stars of shattering void tier. The thunderclap 9th heaven and demon fairy step were activated at the same time. His speed was extremely fast, and he quickly flew in the direction of the fallen moon gorge. On the other side, he issued an order through the totem, making all the elites gather at the fallen moon gorge to battle those underworld people. 3 days later, he arrived at the fallen moon gorge. At this time, the Rain Emperor and Mu Rongqing also arrived with a large number of elites, setting up a great army outside the gorge. Yi Shuang was also invited out, sitting leisurely on the side, out of place with the others. "Greetings, Your Majesty." When it was Ling Han's turn, everyone knelt down to pay their respects. Ling Han waved his hand, letting everyone rise, and then said, "Big brother, how's the situation?" The desolate north had fallen, and the totem naturally lost its function of ears and eyes, no longer able to know what was happening inside. "According to my several times entering the gorge to inquire, the other party has already regrouped and will leave the gorge in a few days," the Rain Emperor said with a frown. He had seen the destruction caused by those things, and as the former king of Rain Country, he obviously hated them. "Report." The scout suddenly rushed in, knelt and said, "There's movement in the gorge." Chapter 854. They came so quickly. Long heavy footsteps came from the canyon, messy and disorderly. From this it was a motley crew. Ling Han and the others immediately left the tent and headed towards the canyon's entrance. They saw 100 humanoid creatures at the forefront, but their bodies were wrapped in a black air current, and their appearances couldn't be seen at all. Even their height and gender couldn't be distinguished. Behind them was a dense crowd. It could be seen that they were obviously ordinary people before, but now they were wrapped in black demonic qi, making them look terrifying and emitting a strong bloodthirsty air. They transformed into low-level demonic servants of the netherworld, Yi Shuang said. They're somewhat similar to corpse soldiers, feeling no pain and unafraid of death, but their physiques are far inferior. However, they still retain a considerable amount of intelligence, and may not be easier to kill than corpse soldiers of the same tier. "Then what about the people in front?" Ling Han asked. "They can be considered high-level demonic servants." Yi Shuang nodded. "Shattering Void tier is only a high-level demonic servant." Ling Han was surprised. Yi Shuang rolled her eyes at him and said, "Gods are divided into 5 levels, and each major level is divided into 4 small levels. Even a small level is almost impossible to cross, equivalent to 20 levels. These guys haven't even advanced to the god tier. Could they still be called demon generals or demon kings?" That was true. From the level of the vast lands, these high-level demonic servants were already peak existences, but in the netherworld they couldn't even touch the edge of experts. Contending against the netherworld, this is every god's duty, and this lady is no exception. Yi Shuang's expression was solemn. "Today this lady will fight alongside you, and must purge these demonic servants. Ha, this Feng isn't late, right?" With a long laugh, a slender lonely man could be seen descending from the sky, holding a wine gourd in his hand. His face was full of beard stubble, looking extremely aged. "Big brother." Ling Han was pleasantly surprised, and immediately went up to greet him. It was Feng Peyun. After not seeing each other for a few years, Feng Peyun had already advanced from the 3rd layer of the Shattering Void tier to the 5th layer. Such improvement was truly great. Thinking about it, it should be because he had cultivated the enlightened sword heart, which could sever the inner demon barrier, making it relatively easy for him to improve his realm. This was definitely a great help. Although Feng Peyun hadn't reached the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier, he cultivated sword heart illumination, which should be extremely destructive against these demons. "Second brother, long time no see." The speed at which your cultivation improves is really shocking. Feng Peyun laughed loudly. Back then, Ling Han was only in the flower blossom tier, and now he was about to advance into the shattering void tier. Ling Han smiled and said, "Big brother, you will temporarily join my dynasty. I will confer you the title of king, allowing you to use the power of the nation to raise your combat prowess." Okay. Feng Peyun agreed with a smile. Originally, with his cultivation level and status, it was naturally impossible for him to lower himself to anyone and become a king. But now, in order to resist the invasion of the netherworld, he naturally knew which was more important: righteousness and face. Besides, it's not a big deal to work for my second brother. Ling Han activated the totem and said, "I now confer Big Brother Feng Peyun as this dynasty's Wind Cloud King, and hereby announce to the world, Hong." The totem instantly moved, instantly transmitting this appointment to every corner of the Great Ling Empire, and above the empire, a golden name appeared on the Black Tower's totem: Wind Cloud King Feng Peyun. This represented Great Ling Empire's official conferment. Through the totem, it accepted the will of the people and could operate the power of the nation. Now Great Ling Empire had a total of 3 kings: Reign Emperor Mu Rongqing, and the newly conferred Feng Peyun. Feng Peyun immediately used the power of the nation, and couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised as he said, "This one's power actually increased to the level of Shattering Void Tier 11 stars. Unfortunately, this one's physique isn't tough enough, or else it could still increase a bit more." With the addition of the power of the nation, his power increased by 4 stars, but his combat prowess shouldn't be just 4 stars. "Brat, also confer the title of king to this lady," Yi Shuang said. Although she was a god, she was suppressed by the realm's power, and her tier directly dropped to the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier. But it didn't mean that her power could reach Shattering Void tier 20 stars. Thus, the power of the nation also had an additional effect on her. Ling Han nodded and once again conferred Yi Shuang as peerless king through the totem. This lady's battle prowess actually only increased by 3 stars. Yi Shuang couldn't help but feel depressed. It couldn't be helped. The stronger one was, the weaker the effect of the power of the nation's bonus would be, unless she was the ruler of a nation and could obtain an unlimited power boost. As long as she herself could withstand it, and the will of the people was strong enough. However, it's still enough to suppress that great bewitching demon. The great bewitching demon was obviously referring to the Lunar King. Being able to keep her in mind all this time, it could be seen how much of a shadow the Lunar King's beauty left on her back then. "Human race, surrender quickly, and this king can grant you eternal life." In the opposite canyon, those high-level demon servants had already walked out. Over 100 Shattering Void tier elites stood there, emitting a terrifying aura as if even the heavens were about to collapse. Mere demon servants, and dare to boast shamelessly. Ling Han sneered. "How dare you speak to this king in such a manner?" The tallest high-level demonic servant bellowed. With a wave of his hand, a silver beam of light scattered out, but it immediately expanded infinitely, transforming into a silver spider the size of a mountain. This large spider moved its 8 long legs that were like heavenly dagger axes, looking disdainfully at all living beings. At its level, transforming its body was obviously a piece of cake. "Kill!" That high-level demon servant who called himself king pointed at Ling Han, and the large silver spider immediately sprang out with its 8 legs, charging towards Ling Han. "Haha, I'll be your opponent." Feng Peyun laughed loudly, brandishing his sword as he attacked. The reason why he could improve his realm so quickly was also because of this big spider which was constantly motivating him. Now that he had the power of the nation's boost, Feng Peyun obviously had to have a grand battle. Pung! The 2 great elites clashed, instantly fighting from the ground to the sky. Extremely intense. Ling Han took a glance, and discovered that Feng Peyun's current battle prowess wasn't weaker than the large silver spider. He instantly relaxed and said indifferently, "This emperor is Ling Han of the Great Ling Empire. Who are you all? State your names." That king of demon servants sneered. A mere heaven-tier warrior dares to call himself king? What a huge joke. This king's previous name has long been abandoned. You all can call this king demon King San Mi. Yi Shuang couldn't help but spurt out in laughter, and said, "Just a mere demon servant, and you dare call yourself a demon king? How thick is your skin? Come, fight with this lady for 300 rounds. This lady won't rip off your thick skin. Are you seeking your own death?" The king of demon servants sneered, and reached out to grab Yi Shuang. "This lady isn't a casual person. Don't use your dirty hands to touch me." Yi Shuang reached out and slapped, instantly sending the king of demon servants' large hand flying. The king of demon servants sneered, waved the large hand that was entangled in demonic qi, and said, "Kill them all." The army instantly charged towards the Great Ling Empire. Oh! Chapter 855. This was a super prodigy who wasn't inferior to Xiao Sisi or Xia Wuk, and her power had reached 6 stars. She was at the peak stage of the mountain river tier, yet her power had increased by another 6 stars. How terrifying was this? Whoosh! This whip swept through the wind and clouds, and it was as if it were going to tear a hole in the sky. It was different, very different. Although Fu Liangye was also a seed-level prodigy, his cultivation level was far too low, after all. He couldn't compare to her at all. If this had been 2 years ago, he would have only been able to forcefully endure this whip with his physique. Now, however, he casually raised his hand and clamped down with 2 fingers. Pa! The whip obediently stopped between his fingers. Pooh! Seeing this scene, countless people were so shocked that they stuck out their tongues. That was a seed-level prodigy of the Majestic Heaven sect. Moreover, she was standing at the peak stage of the mountain river tier. Theoretically speaking, she should be invincible in the mountain river tier. At the very least, no one could suppress her. However, this young man had casually clamped down on her whip, and it seemed as if he still had some strength to spare. Just how vast was the gap between their strength? Gan Shiyun's beautiful eyes also widened in shock, and a chill rose up in her heart. How could this young man be so powerful? He hadn't used any secret techniques at all, and he had merely clamped down on her whip with brute strength. This meant that his power was far superior to hers. Secondly, his physique was extremely terrifying. Otherwise, no matter how powerful she was, she wouldn't be able to catch a god tool with her bare hands. She would still be injured no matter how powerful she was. However, did such a person exist in this world? If there was, shouldn't he be a seed of the Majestic Heaven sect? Ling Han relaxed his fingers and said, "Don't be too domineering. Being kind to others is also a way to leave a way out for yourself." He smiled at Hu Feiyun and said, "The 9th king has a letter for you." Hu Feiyun was still in a daze, and she blankly stretched out her hand to receive the letter. She hurriedly scanned through it, and there was a strange expression on her face as she said, "Big sister has sent you to become my follower?" "That's right." Ling Han nodded. "What?" The people nearby were all stunned when they heard the conversation between the two of them. A person who could catch Gan Shiyun's whip with just 2 fingers had actually become Hu Feiyun's follower. Although everyone vied to become the followers of seeds, that was only because their natural talent wasn't too high. Thus, they hadn't been recruited by the Majestic Heaven sect. Thus, they had chosen to become the followers of seeds. Otherwise, how many people would be willing to lower themselves to the status of a servant? Moreover, judging from the strength that Ling Han had displayed, he was completely qualified to become a seed. Thus, what need was there for him to become a follower? Even if he missed out on the Majestic Heaven sect's disciple recruitment this time, couldn't he wait for the next one? It was only 100 years. To immortals, 100 years wasn't a very long time. Everyone was confused. Then they looked at Hu Feiyun with envy. Being able to obtain such a powerful follower meant that her status in the sect would be even higher. Hu Feiyun was still very confused, and she asked, "Who are you?" Ling Han smiled and replied, "Han Lin." Han Lin, Ling Han. Hu Feiyun's beautiful eyes suddenly lit up, and her confusion instantly disappeared. A smile blossomed on her face. Her personality was a bit muddle-headed, and this smile was filled with the naivety and adorableness of a young girl. Ling Han smiled faintly. Although this girl was muddle-headed, she wasn't stupid at all. She had realized who he was just by hearing his name. From this aspect it could be seen that her reaction speed was extremely fast. Detestable. Gan Shiryun was furious. Flames surged from her body, intertwining to form dense divine patterns. She looked like a goddess of flames. Ling Han turned around and berated her. Didn't anyone tell you that interrupting others is very rude? That's right, that's right. Hu Feiyun repeated. Her personality hadn't changed in the slightest. Gan Shiryun's beautiful face was filled with anger. These two people were actually teasing her. The disciples of the majestic heaven sect naturally couldn't kill each other. However, he was merely a follower. No matter how prodigious he was, so what if she killed him? The red seal between her brows flashed, and a cauldron actually fell out. When it appeared, the temperature in the surroundings instantly skyrocketed. Not good. That's the Gong clan's goddess cauldron. It can incinerate all living beings. That's a precious treasure at the heavenly body tier. No, that's only a replica. The real one has definitely been left in the Gong clan. However, it's definitely extraordinary. It's almost at the sun-moon tier. Everyone hurriedly retreated. This was a seed prodigy at the consummate level of the mountain river tier. Even the other seeds had to unleash their full power, so how could they be qualified to observe the battle from a close distance? Ling Han positioned himself in front of Hu Feiyun. Meanwhile, the ninth king peeked her head out from behind Ling Han's shoulder and asked in confusion, "Why is she angry?" Strange expressions appeared on the faces of the surrounding spectators. They wondered if Gan Shiryun would vomit blood. Gan Shiryun didn't vomit blood. Yet her beautiful face was already ashen. She activated the goddess furnace and boom! Boundless flames surged into the air, intertwining to form a series of dazzling divine patterns. It was an incredibly terrifying sight. Raging flames incinerate the heavens. She shouted and slapped the goddess furnace. The lid instantly flew up, and a ball of azure flames surged out, wrapping around Ling Han. Ling Han opened up an origin power shield. His physical body naturally didn't care about this kind of raging flames. However, the problem was that his clothes couldn't withstand them. If he didn't do anything, he would definitely be incinerated into nothingness. I definitely have to buy a treasured robe. I don't need it to have powerful protective abilities, but it definitely has to be able to withstand fire and water, Ling Han thought to himself. Die! Gan Shiryun roared as she charged toward Ling Han on the back of the goddess furnace. Since the scorching flames couldn't kill Ling Han, she would just have to suck him into the furnace and use the divine flames to incinerate him. That way, he would eventually be reduced to ashes. Wang! The goddess furnace expanded in size, and it descended upon Ling Han's head. There was a loud boom, and the goddess furnace toppled over onto the ground. Meanwhile, Ling Han had completely disappeared. He had been enshrouded. Ha 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 ha! Gan Shiryun roared with laughter. After being drawn into the goddess furnace, it didn't matter how heaven-defying one's abilities were. One would only be able to be incinerated. Pung! A clear fist print appeared on the lid of the goddess furnace, causing the entire furnace to tremble. Pung! Another fist print appeared, followed by a third, a fourth. Pung 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 pung. The entire goddess furnace instantly lost its original appearance and became incredibly irregular. The people in the surroundings all had their mouths open wide enough to fit a fist. It was clear that this was Ling Han unleashing his might. Incinerate! Gan Shiryun hurriedly shouted. She was already in a difficult position, and she hurriedly activated this god tool with all her might. She wanted to use her supreme true flames to incinerate Ling Han. Even the seed-level prodigies paled upon seeing this. What kind of freak is this guy? He was drawn into the goddess furnace, yet not only was he not incinerated, but he's even as lively as before. He almost destroyed the goddess furnace. Although this isn't the true goddess furnace, it's still an extremely terrifying god tool in the mountain river tier. This is unbelievable. Chapter 856. Unless Ma Duobao came in person, he could rival the king of demon servants, and even kill it. However, Ma Duobao was restrained by the Thousand Corpse sect, and couldn't put out the fire now, so it was impossible for him to appear. What to do? Ling Han frowned. He could only put everyone into the Black Tower. They definitely couldn't all die here. As long as they didn't die, then everything was possible. Moreover, as long as Ma Duobao came to his senses, he'd be able to quickly lend a helping hand. That was the only way. Everyone, I have a spatial divine tool that can save my life. Later, don't resist my divine sense wrapping, and I'll put everyone in, Ling Han said to the 8 kings and Yi Shuang through divine sense. Spatial divine tool. Yi Shuang's beautiful eyes immediately widened. This thing was an extremely precious existence in the divine realm, and only the most top-notch almighty beings could refine it. She didn't expect that Ling Han actually had one. No wonder she smelled the shocking aura of treasure on him. The 8 kings all nodded. Things had developed to this point and it was already out of their control. Only Ma Duobao could turn the tide. Ling Han's physique was tyrannical, and he was the first to stand up. However, he suffered 2 severe injuries in the previous battle, and was now riddled with wounds looking too horrible to look at. Ling Han, Hunyo leaped over. The little girl also suffered considerable injuries, and blood flowed down from her forehead, emitting a bleak beauty. Damn it! Ling Han secretly hated. Although he escaped from the sea race, he didn't take it to heart. Facing a shattering void tier true dragon, and being able to escape unscathed wasn't a disgrace. But now he was completely defeated, and with the invasion of demon servants, it was unknown how many living beings would die in their hands. As a king, how could he feel good? Power of the nation was a double-edged blade, and now it was a backlash. Leave your lives behind for this king. The king of demon servants laughed loudly, and struck out with another palm. Battle prowess surpassing 20 stars of shattering void tier shook heaven and earth, forcibly tearing the space apart. Hong! At this moment, a ship's bow suddenly crashed out from the spatial fissure. Shit, here we go again. Previously, when Ma Duobao made his move against the 5 sects, he had burst forth with battle prowess of 20 stars of shattering void tier, and directly tore apart the space. In the end, a divine ship crashed out, and it was unknown how long it had been sailing in the void. There were actually still dead souls lingering on it, and their strength was even more nature-defying. Do I have to do it again now? The bow of the ship was revealed to be a massive ship that was over 3,000 feet in length. However, the big ship this time was different from the previous ones. There were no holes on it and the flag was clear. There were even female soldiers on the bow. Ling Han could clearly see that there was a strange creature drawn on the flag. It was a fish swimming in the sea, but it suddenly broke out of the water and turned into a rock, flying between heaven and earth. It was obviously just a painting, but it produced a dynamic image in his mind. It was really magical. This large ship lay between the king of demonic servants, Ling Han, the 8 kings and company. Who dares to stop this king? The king of demonic servants immediately shouted. His current battle prowess was as high as 20 stars, and he was invincible in this realm, causing his confidence to soar. Ling Han and the 8 kings' expressions were strange. They'd seen the power of the other divine ship, and the woman on it even drew back the eye of heavenly Tao. You're asking for trouble. No one on the ship paid attention to him. An old woman in cyan walked to the bow of the ship and swept her gaze down. Her gaze stopped on Hunyo, and she instantly revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. Xiao, a dozen people immediately jumped off the ship. They were all women, but none of them were dressed like soldiers. They all wore the battle clothes of generals, obviously having some status. Greetings, young empress. These women all knelt and saluted Hunyo. Only the old woman in cyan was an exception. She revealed a smile and said, "Girl, I finally found you. You all..." The king of demonic servants was furious. There were actually people in this world who dared to ignore him. He sneered and swatted at these women. When they turned into a pool of blood, they'd probably regret their current attitude, right? Young empress, who wounded you? The female generals all asked Hunyo, each revealing an angry expression. Although Hunyo didn't understand, she was smart enough to immediately point at the king of demonic servants and those demonic servants, and said, "It's him, Jane." The female generals all stood up and turned in unison towards the king of demonic servants. This was very strange. The king of demonic servants already attacked. How fast was the battle prowess of 20 stars of shattering void tier? Why hadn't they fought until now? As if time had frozen. A female general attacked, pressing towards the king of demonic servants. Hong, heaven and earth wailed. Pa, the king of demonic servants, was instantly shattered into pieces, its presence instantly disappearing. Died just like that. This was battle prowess of 20 stars of shattering void tier, invincible in this realm. So how could it be insta-killed in one move? This is divine level power. Yi Shuang cried out, forgetting herself. Divine level power again. Ling Han and the 8 kings' expressions were very strange. Did they really have to live in a sealed small world? Now divine level power appeared one after another. The same big ship, the same terrifying. Those demonic servants were completely shocked. What was going on? They'd slept for who knew how many millennia, turning into demons, and should have been invincible in the world after coming out. They even had the heavy responsibility of bringing the vast lands into the netherworld, creating history, but now they just walked out of the desolate north and their boss died. How could they accept it? Hong long as heaven and earth trembled, the eye of heavenly Tao appeared. It was obvious that there was a bleeding wound on the eyeball, which actually hadn't healed after such a long time. Empress Aura, a female general, said. It was injured by Empress. However, since Empress didn't destroy it, then let's also be merciful, the other female generals said one after another. The cyan-clothed old woman raised her head towards the sky and said indifferently, get lost. The eye of heavenly Tao immediately blinked. Do you think everyone is that woman, able to wound it with one strike? It was enraged, and raised the might of heaven and earth to expel these people. A small world couldn't tolerate divine level power. I told you to get lost, didn't you hear me? The cyan-clothed old woman's gaze widened, and instantly emitted endless might. Pa, the eye of heavenly Tao's wound split open, and copious amounts of blood gushed out. Fuck. At this moment, everyone burst out with vulgarities. It was too hard to accept. The grand eye of heavenly Tao, the embodiment of heaven and earth's will, actually couldn't withstand an old woman's gaze. Who was the eye of heavenly Tao? The eye of heavenly Tao trembled, feeling intense fear. It could feel that the being below had the power to destroy it. The female generals all turned around and attacked those demonic servants. Hong, divine level power wantonly spread out, instantly wiping out all the demonic servants. Divine level power should have been forbidden from appearing in a small world, but now wantonly attacking right in front of the eye of heavenly Tao. This was the most awesome cheating in the world, right? Everyone was dumbfounded. They felt that they could brag about today's matter for the rest of their lives. To be able to see this scene, their lives were worth it. The eye of heavenly Tao let out a mournful wail, and hurriedly disappeared with a flash. Go and make trouble, I won't care anymore. Reading on a phone is more refreshing. Chapter 857. Who would have thought that a crisis that should have been huge was actually resolved so easily? Of course, it was also incredibly shocking. An immortal descended and made a move, suppressing the eye of heavenly Tao to the point where it couldn't do anything about it. This was definitely a grand scene, giving enough face to the demon servant. Young Empress, let's go home. The cyan-clothed old woman held Hunyo's hand, and divine light circulated, immediately healing Hunyo's injuries. No, Nyo wants to be with Ling Han. Hunyo hurriedly struggled and jumped to hide behind Ling Han. The cyan-clothed old woman immediately walked towards Ling Han, and the female generals did the same, all staring at Ling Han with unfriendly gazes. Of course, abducting a child, and it was their young empress at that. This man truly deserved to die. The cyan-clothed old woman stared at Ling Han, and a terrifying pressure circulated. Ling Han instantly spurted blood, and his body made cracking sounds. His bones were groaning, even breaking. The physique that he was so proud of actually couldn't withstand the old woman's gaze. As expected of an immortal, one that could even ignore the rules of a small world. Yi Shuang's face was numb, and she mumbled, what kind of powerful existence is this? Able to break even the rules of a small world. Could it be a Genesis tier elite? Heavens! This lady actually had the fortune of meeting a Genesis tier elite. This was a truly invincible power. Putting aside the fact that Ma Duobao was here personally, even if the great elites of the 5 sects were to descend to the lower realm and display their strongest abilities, they would probably be killed in one move when facing this old woman. Don't you dare hurt Ling Han. Hunyo hurriedly stepped forward, opening her small hands to protect in front of Ling Han. She glared at the old woman, exuding a shocking killing intent. Divine light actually rose from her chest, emitting a supreme presence. Power of inheritance. The female generals all looked pious and knelt down one after another, murmuring something and looking at Hunyo with fanaticism in their eyes. Only the green-clothed old woman was an exception. She smiled and said, as expected, "Yun passed the power of inheritance to you. You are our Rock Palace's young palace lord, the future supreme ruler. How can you be restrained by a man? I will eliminate this future trouble for you." "You dare." Hunyo hurriedly turned around and hugged Ling Han. "Ling Han is Nyo's. If you dare to touch even a single hair on his head, Nyo will commit suicide." She seemed to have realized that Ling Han was too powerful for her to handle, so she could only use her own life as a threat. Ling Han humphed, put Hunyo down and said, "I have no enmity with Senior, yet Senior insists on killing me. What kind of logic is this? Are you crazy? This creature is too powerful. Unless I recover to my peak state, I won't be a match for her at all." Small Tower yelled in his mind, and for the first time its tone was filled with terror. Being able to make Small Tower lose its composure, this old woman's strength was evident. The old woman in green sneered and said, "Kid, how dare you? Do you know that if I really want to kill you, no one can stop me? You're not allowed to harm Ling Han." Hunyo danced with joy, extremely hateful. Senior's strength is indeed far above Junior's, but Junior's inferior strength doesn't mean I don't have pride. Ling Han was unyielding. "Senior can kill me but can't shut my mouth. Ha ha ha." The old woman in green laughed loudly. "Grandelder, this brat has a strong influence on young palace lord. It's better to kill him," a female general suggested. "Right, young palace lord is young and insensible, and is easily bewitched by others. This person's intentions are deserving of death." The old woman in green waved her hand, and said, "Fine, after we return, we'll never see this brat again. For the sake that he still has some pride, spare his life." "Yes, Grand Elder." All the female generals answered solemnly. The old woman in green smiled at Hunyo, and said, "Girl, return with me." Not going. Hunyo shook her head anxiously. The old woman in green sighed and said, "Then I can only kill that Ling Han." "No." Hunyo was anxious, pointing at her nose and said, "Didn't you say you wouldn't harm Ling Han just now? But you're not obedient and I can't do anything," the old woman in green said with a smile. Hunyo pouted, and after thinking for a while she finally nodded and said, "Okay, Nyo agrees. That's more obedient," the old woman in green said with a smile. She'd lived for so many years, how could she not deal with a little girl? Hunyo's gaze shifted, and she said, "But Nyo wants to take Ling Han with her." "Who?" The old woman in green instantly choked, almost coughing. Why was this little girl so difficult to deal with? She said solemnly, "No, this boy definitely can't return with us." Hunyo cried out loudly, making a scene, but the old woman was unmoved. "Don't worry, you go back with them first. I'll definitely find you," Ling Han said. So what if she was a great cultivator of the divine realm? He'd cultivate to that level one day. "You promise?" Hunyo said pitifully. Ling Han nodded, and said very cautiously, "I promise." All the female generals looked at Ling Han with disdainful gazes. This brat had no idea how powerful the force they belonged to was. Even if you cultivated into a corpse, you would still be a far cry from them. In this lifetime you'd never set foot on their territory, don't even think about it. "All right." Hunyo agreed unwillingly, slowly walking towards the old woman in green, tilting her head and said, "Nyo wants to bring some people with me, or else Nyo will definitely be very, very disobedient." The old woman in green laughed loudly and said, "As long as it's not this boy, there's no problem." Hunyo was finally happy, pointing at Helian Sun Shui, and said, "Take this woman with no chest." She paused, then pointed at the Lunar King and said, and this big bewitching girl, Niu, doesn't feel at ease. Then she pointed at Yi Shuang. And this little bewitching girl, Niu, doesn't feel at ease either. Her jealousy flared, and even Lu Yutong, Li Xichan, and Zhu Xianer were named by her, and even Ling Jianshui. Ling Han's expression involuntarily became strange. Hu Niu really intended to make him a loner. However, this party was definitely a supreme existence in the immortal realm. To be able to enter the immortal realm with them, and with Hu Niu's care, was actually a great opportunity. Lord Niu, take Uncle Rabbit, take Uncle Rabbit. Rabbit was extremely proactive. Now that Hu Niu became some young empress of the divine realm, her future was extremely bright, and Uncle Rabbit obviously wanted to hitch a ride. Hu Niu snorted and said, "You accompany Ling Han, and take good care of Niu's Ling Han. Don't let him be bored, and more importantly, don't let him get hurt, or else Niu will eat you." Rabbit lamented the heavens and the earth. What sin did it commit to actually be abandoned? Ling Han didn't plan to persuade Hu Niu to change her mind. That was fine, he'd let the people around him follow Hu Niu. Firstly, they could obtain better cultivation resources and environment, and secondly, it was safer than staying by his side. Apart from the great enemy of the Rock Palace, the existence that caused the fall of the former empress. But for the old woman in green and the others presumably, the Rock Palace should be very powerful and have deep roots. Otherwise, with the empress dead, how could they not be destroyed? Ling Han nodded and released all the people in the Black Tower, letting them board the ship. Phone reading was more refreshing. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.